Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday, May the 20th, and we are live here on Rumble. We are live on YouTube. We're watching on X right now. Still, I don't know why I'm still on X, but we are. Thanks for joining us for the program. I've been monitoring the chat. Our morning chat has been going and moving along nicely. You guys are commiserating and or discussing things. I want to also say congratulations to the folks in Israel who were successful in their primary in the Kentucky 4th District. That's not me saying that. The people in Israel told you. It was the most consequential election primary in America for Israel. That's a real headline. Go figure. Yeah. What happens when the train jumps the tracks, though? What I realized this morning is, because I've been monitoring both social media and mainstream news, kind of interesting when you get into a space and somebody tells you they want to do something, then someone tells you that they're doing that thing, and then that thing happens, and then if you pay attention enough to say, hey, you said you were going to do it, and then you did it, I don't like what you did. That makes you hateful for recognizing that they did the thing that they said they would do. What a weird way to be. We're going to go through the timeline of social media posts by a group called AIPAC, who want you to know that even though that they're mostly interested in a foreign country and that favorable nation relationship with a foreign country and our country, they are Americans. They also seem to have a really, really outsized impact. So I'm going to be kind of curious about that. We're going to run a couple of things by the numbers. So the Kentucky 4 primary wrapped up. Thomas Massie was not victorious, so he's got 7 more months in Congress. I sent him a message this morning, and I was kind of at a loss. Like, what do you say to somebody when they've lost an election? And at the end of the day, I went back to something that I remember sharing with him, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago. And I just said, I kind of was hoping that you didn't win because I pretty much hate Congress. And I hate people that are in Congress, and it's weird to like someone that is in Congress. So I will say, for those of you that are commiserating on that, and so for those of you that don't care, I think that Tom Massie is probably better off as a human being, and America is a little bit worse off. But there you have it. A lot of folks are not going to be voting anymore. So what happens when that train jumps the tracks and we cannot pretend that your vote actually matters? I think that we already had that answer. We've had that answer for a long time. I'm going to turn to a Jewish comedian named Ari Shafir to actually explain that to you. And he did so about a decade ago. And I think he was right. There's just a big difference. There's an overlap between the people who know it and what that pool of people encompasses. And when those people encompass like comedians and people who can't bench press the bar and soft men that don't know what violence actually looks like, that's one thing. And when it actually encompasses the group of people who violence is the last resort and they don't want it, and they're willing to do almost anything to avoid it, when those people end up in that camp, and I don't know where we are as far as that critical mass looks like, that's when things are going to get really ugly in this country. And I think that we got real close in 2024. I think people think they outsourced that revolution, and I think some of those people, probably a good chunk of them, became disillusioned last night. So that's kind of where I think we sit as a nation. One way or another, let's start at the very beginning. Let's start at the base level. Regardless of how you started your day today, you probably should get up and put on some freaking underwear. Be a grown-up. Don't be like my son who wears a tracksuit and goes full commando. Is that too much information? Maybe. He's a 5-year-old boy. You can get away with that. If you're a grown-up, you can't get away with that. You got to put on some drawers underneath. Summer's coming. How do you guys like that segue? And when the heat hits, bad underwear can be a real serious problem. It could be a real serious problem to little guys too, I guess. That's why we wear undertack here in this house. I've got several sets of them. They are very comfortable. Nobody wants swampy nethers. Nobody wants smash jewels. It can really ruin your day. If you go out and mow the lawn, it really makes it a lot worse off, especially here in Texas where it's humid and it's gross and it's hot. And if you're outside and you're sweating more and you're moving around and you're the kind of person who likes to maintain some fitness, yeah, you might want to check into what's going on with your undercarriage and what you're wearing underneath. Heat, sweat, chafing, these are all things that were an enemy when I was in the military and I was rucking around. And so it's interesting. The guys at Undertac have designed underwear for guys that did the stuff that I did. Real special forces dudes that are operating in Africa under brutal heat and awful conditions. They wanted something that performs. This would have been helpful back then. I'm sure of it. It's breathable, it's antibacterial, and it's insanely comfortable. It's built to keep you dry and supported and comfortable when the temperatures start getting Texas-y and gross. They've also got the hidden E&E pouch in the back that can hide cash or a little backup card or a key or an almond if you're Steve Friend and you're running a marathon. Right now, you can get 20% off site-wide. Use Kyle20 at Undertac, UNDERTAC.com, undertac.com. The promo code will be Kyle20. It's easy to remember because Kyle, my name, 20% off site-wide. It's not just underwear. They've got other stuff there to check out as well. There is a link in today's show description. Again, Undertac, UNDERTAC.com. Kyle20, get yourself 20% off. Check it out. They've got stuff for ladies as well. They've got some socks that are really comfortable. I wear them to the gym pretty frequently. Hoodies, I haven't tried. T-shirts, I do have, and I've worn them to the gym as well. So check them out. Look into their products. Support our sponsors as they support us. We appreciate the guys over at Undertac. And let's get into today's program. Let's see about this choo-choo jumping the tracks. I feel like we should start off right in the very beginning. I teased out a little bit of Ari Shaffir. If you guys have never seen this clip, it's about 10 years old. It is a little bit controversial for probably a lot of places. Somebody online I saw posted it again. I'd seen it previously, and the guy said he can get away with saying that because he's Jewish. I don't think so. I think he gets away with it, but he's a comedian. But I also think he gets away with saying this stuff because he's correct. So we're going to play this. It's a little bit longer clip. I may stop it in the middle. And again, I think the question here is not whether or not some people realize this. I think a lot of people realize this. In fact, I continue to follow a lot of guys on social media that are in the special operations or former special operations world. These are guys that, you know, former Green Berets, former Army Ranger types. And they kind of universally know what it looks like. They've been in countries that have been overturned. They may have even been part of those operations if they were part of that kind of the gray area in special operations. It's not a foreign concept when the population starts turning against the system. But the difference turns out to be whether regular people are frustrated and women tweet at me and say, Kyle, when are strong men going to represent we the people? And I have to remind them, like, lady, there's no such thing as we the people. That's not a real thing. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know why you think it's a real thing. I don't know what caused you to use those words. But I've got to tell you, if you want to lose my attention immediately, and maybe this is the same for some of you as well, when somebody comes at you and uses this nonsense, Mel K, who's a very nice lady in my experience, I've been on her program a couple times. I think I've met her in person maybe twice, at least once, maybe twice. And I remember her using that expression all the time. It was ubiquitous amongst the Q people. It was ubiquitous amongst the sort of like patriot crowd people. When are we the people going to stand up and have a say? And every time I heard it, it made my skin crawl because there is no we the people. The we the people that you're talking about and people discuss in that space, the kind of people that are conservatives, somehow think that you're going to recover and regain a conservative base in what is otherwise a 90s Democrat Party, the GOP, the kind of people that really think that you can work within that brand name, that you can really make the system be the thing that you hope it'll be because you think that, quote unquote, we the people represents the majority of the people. We the people is slang for we the conservative people who want constitutional governance in America, who look towards what our system could be, and we expect that it will be that. But there is no such majority in this country. It is a very small minority. The majority of people are not paying attention at all. This fractionalized tiny minority of people, this audience will never be as big as somebody who's selling lies to you. It will never be a Benny Johnson show. It will never be, more broadly speaking, something that's just completely retarded. It will never be as big as Theo Von cracking Asian jokes with his buddy. And the reason is simple, is because the stuff that we're talking about here is not universally accepted in America. Even if bacon cheeseburger nationalism is palatable to most people, still, it's not going to be something that most people are even going to be able to assess is their position. I think if we had a one-on-one with them and we were like, hey, you're at a backyard barbecue. I'm going to offer you a burger or a hot dog. Where are you at? And they're like, I'm a burger guy. You're like, okay. That means that you're not vegan. It means you're not Hindu. I've got cheese. Do you want cheese? And they're like, yeah, I'm into that. And you're like, cool. So you're not a dairy problem person. Are you interested in bacon? Can I give you some crispy bacon? And they're like, does it cost extra? No, it doesn't cost anything. I'm giving bacon on my cheeseburgers. People say yes. Then that might be most people in America. That may be the majority of people. That may be the most American thing you can order at a diner, a bacon cheeseburger. And yet, I would have to slow walk you to get there. Now, the question is, how many of those people also are looking at our political system and being like, this system represents me. I think that it's accurate and I give a shit. Because I talk politics every day and I despise politics. I hate it. It's my least favorite thing. I think news is somewhat interesting. I think human nature is sort of fascinating, but I just don't like politics because it doesn't seem to have a transference from people that I actually know, the life I'm actually living in, the so-called normies, as you guys are calling them out in the chat, the normies that are my neighbors and my friends who don't want to get deep into the minutia, who don't have conspiratorial ideas. They just want to be left the freaking heck alone. They just want to be able to live their life. Those people do not translate into the sort of nerdy, weird, socially awkward, kind of unlovable people in politics. Laura Loomer's little hit guy, who is he's like this, he looks like he has AIDS. I don't know if he is gay or if he has AIDS or whatever, but he looks like that. And somebody said you should be nice to him because he's autistic. And it's like, oh, I don't have to be nice to anybody, especially not nice people. He's the guy that does all these like run up on Tom Massie's and the thing. He runs up on Democrats and tries to say dumb things. And he's physically weak. He looks like a human skeleton. He looks like he probably doesn't eat very well. And last night he sent me a picture of Donald Trump and a quote from Thomas Massie, where Thomas Massie said his problem was that he had some sort of projection and going through puberty or something like that. Those people, the people that want to gloat about something that has nothing to do with them, that want to cheer on something that is unrelated to them, and they somehow think that they're part of the team, that they're part of the cool kids, even though nobody wants to sit with them at lunch. That guy, that's utterly unrecognizable. That's the guy that shows up at your house and knocks on the door, and you don't even feel like guilt on slamming the door to not talk to him. Usually you'd feel guilt. If there were Mormons there, you'd feel guilty slamming your door. When the Charles Downs of the world show up at your and try to ask you something, you could just walk away and you're like, I don't even think you're a human being that is worth my time. I'm allowed to be an asshole to you because you're useless. You don't have any sort of gravity as a human being. Anyway, Ari Shaffir actually has a very similar build, which is why when he said this 10 years ago, it's not particularly threatening. But as time goes on, especially after 2024, when I think people saw that we were walking closer to this line than ever before, we're getting a lot closer to this sort of thing, where this mentality is, you're getting some of the violent, capable men who otherwise would try to shy away from this as much as possible. They're looking and they're like, if you back me into this corner, then I'm in that corner. And I think more people are there than maybe previously. The question is what does that critical mass look like? This is not advocacy, lest anyone think otherwise. I am reporting on a historical event 10 years ago, an American comedian having this discussion with HuffPost, and HuffPost looking so incredibly uncomfortable, and also sort of knowing that this was true then. And I think it was probably true then too, to be fair. I think we've been slowly getting back to the late 90s when this was also evidently true, which was about the time before 9/11, when we had people like Vince Flynn writing novels about it, when there was this popular understanding that everybody wanted to see an apocalyptic event because they wanted to see a reset of the chessboard. They were like, there's too many moves in play. We're not controlling the pieces anymore. What does it look like if we get a hard reset? Here's Ari Shaffir's HuffPost interview. Again, this is 10 years old.
And what about politics?
I don't give a shit.
You don't find it a great
I really don't care
treasure
about politics.
trove of
Some people
material?
do. I don't. I think the system is corrupt. Every time I'm walking on the street, somebody's like, hey, vote for so-and-so. I'm like, it's all corrupt. Anarchy is the only way we're going to change anything. Violence. Kill a politician. That's the only way you can change shit.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're joking.
No.
Are you serious?
Yeah, voting is not going to make a difference. It has never. Not in 100 years.
So what would you like to see?
I'd like to see some politicians start getting murdered and reform this government.
Oh my God.
Into one that's not corrupted. I'd like to get business out of government, and they're not going to do it. So the only way to do that is start killing people.
Let's just take a pause. First of all, that plain delivery does not sit well with this guy. Look at this guy's discomfort. And I don't know, this guy also has kind of a feminine, reception. He's like, what? No. The funny thing is that you can tell that he probably knows that, like, yeah, there's something to this. And this is just historically accurate over time. And so then Ari goes on and he just lays out. He's like, look, when has this ever been the case? Do you think that we are this dramatically different from human beings for all of time? Again, it's really uncomfortable to take that and go, like, is that really what's happening? Haven't we evolved beyond that? And the fact is that what we learned, I think, in 2020, 2021, during the COVID lockdowns, we learned something really important about human beings. Human beings will do what they're told overwhelmingly, and they will do so for whoever the authoritarian tyrannical group is. They'll do what they're told. They might even know that it's wrong. And how many of you experienced that too? You experienced a boss, you experienced maybe a supervisor or some sort of like maybe a company manager or an owner. You experienced local politicians that gave in to fear. They said, I don't have strong ideas. These strong things have come down. The consequences are not things that I'm willing to take on. I'm not willing to be either a white martyr or a red martyr. We learned that Americans are not exceptional compared to regular people because they're regular people. We're populated by regular people. And people just get bad information and then they act on it. They get fearful information and they act like fearful people. And they don't stand up and ask enough questions to say, what gives you the authority and how dare you tell me how to operate as a free citizen? They just go, I would much rather cede my sovereignty and my individual agency. So he's not wrong. And to be fair, when he's talking about violence is the answer in this case. And again, I don't think Ari Shaffir is a guy that can engage in violence. I mean, look at him. He's not a physically strong man. He's a comedian. I don't suspect that he's hyper capable in martial arts or handling a weapon. Maybe he is. Maybe I just don't know that about him, but I've looked in a little bit and I didn't see it. He's very funny, but he's deadpanning a point that is so uncomfortable. And it might be the truth. I think he recognizes human nature, and I think that sometimes comedians get there.
That exactly.
Look around the world. How has anything changed around the world? How has any regime change happen around the world? Violence. That's the only way. You think people in Arab countries are that much different than us?
Yeah.
Violence. That's the only way.
He's like, well, yeah. Are they, though?
You depose a system that doesn't represent the people anymore.
I mean, I think the wonderful thing about the United States is that we can vote, and you do change administration.
Your vote doesn't go anywhere.
This is what we're going to talk about today. Does your vote actually go somewhere? And if so, where does it go? And how do you know? How do you know that your vote counts? Yesterday, I got a text message from I think probably the Texas, I don't know, some kind of polling agency. It was like the Texas primary question, which is coming up in a week. And we're going to have to decide in Texas whether we want John Cornyn or Ken Paxton to carry on and be the Republican nominee. And my question is do I want one boomer or a different boomer? The answer is I don't want any boomers, so I don't care. So I'm not going to vote in that. I'm not going to vote. Press 1 if you're going to be voting in this primary. Press 2 if you're not. I'm not. Do I want a guy who's 68 versus a guy who's 62? Honestly, I don't give a shit. Do I want a guy who's 64 or 67? No, I don't give a shit. I don't care. But he's so much better. Yeah, did he cheat on his wife? Is he like an old guy that's not representing me at all? He is not representing me. Does he have children that are toddlers? Does he have skin in the game, or is he going to be most likely at the tail end of his life, like working to cash in on some generational wealth at this point? I don't care. I'm not interested. I don't think a lot of people are interested in that. They go, how is this person going to represent me? One of the most common answers in an exit poll that I watched in Kentucky 4, which was Tom Massie's district, people said, who did you choose and why? And one of the answers that came back, and it was repeated over and over again, I chose Ed Gilron, whatever the hell they didn't know his name was, right? And that was common too. People didn't know his name, but they voted for him because he wasn't Massie, because Trump said Massie bad. And so when they did this, the question was like, well, okay, why? What inspired your vote? And one answer was Tom Massie is too old. He's been in Congress too long and he's too old. Tom Massie is 55. The guy who ran against him is 68. So you had a Gen Xer versus a boomer, and the boomers decided that the boomer was younger than the guy who was actually younger. Okay. You're telling me we're voting our way out of it, but basically, at the end of the day, people aren't even smart enough to know what's happening around them. They don't care enough, and they still get a say. This is where it gets real crazy to me. If you had a really small voting electorate block, and those people were actually informed because they actually cared, and they were only able to vote, and it was a real privilege. It was something that was truly important that they held. Like, this is a value. That's not what we have right now. People can take it or leave it. I don't have to vote, it turns out. I don't have to. I don't have to turn out at all. There's no consequence if I don't. And it turns out, I'm fairly confident the results are the same as well. I'm going to show you that in one of your favorite people that you love to hate, who is going to be reelected, Lindsey Graham, because the polls are in, and Lindsey Graham doesn't have much to worry about in his primary. Meanwhile, the actual constitutional conservative type guy in Kentucky will not be representing Kentucky again. They got what they want. But I think the funny thing is, even though the people who won that election with the $20 million they spent, I think what they've actually done is they've created a real problem across the rest of the country. There's nothing funnier than winning a battle and proving that the war is actually a war for something very different than what originally was thought. I'm going to finish out this clip.
Your vote doesn't do anything.
Yes, it does.
You can now be arrested and never tried if they say you're a terrorist. Never tried in your life. Just arrested and held forever.
You can also be arrested for memes, we found out, and both sides will use it. The Biden administration used it against a guy they didn't like, and they went after Douglas Mackey for freaking memes, claiming it was election interference. You think this side won't do the same? They've told you that saying things that are quote-unquote anti-Semitic, which they really mean, this is another interesting conflation, they mean anti-Israel. If you say something that is non-Zionist or anti-Zionist, the Israeli lobby has told you that that is also anti-Jewish, which is weird because I don't have any anti-Jewish sentiment, but I probably have some strong anti-Israeli sentiment because I'm actually America only. I give a shit about my country only, and I don't like any of the other ones. I don't like them. It's like, hey, I'm from Canada. It's like, shut the F up. Hey, I'm from Mexico. I don't care. You're irrelevant to me. I don't care what your opinion is. Allow me to weigh in from Australia on your politics. Shut up, Australian. No one cares about you. No one even knows you're there. Oh, I'm English. Perhaps you should do this. Perhaps you should shut the F up. That's kind of my position. So if you're from Israel or Yemen or Uganda or you're from China or the Philippines, I don't give a shit what you think about my country. And yet, you've told me that if I don't give a shit about your opinion in this foreign nation, that somehow I'm also against someone who is my neighbor that has a religion that's right next to me. It's like, what are we doing? If you want to convince me that being anti-Israeli is also, or like agnostic on Israelis is also somehow anti-Jewish, at some point I might agree with you because you're treating me the same. In which case, I think you're going to find out that a lot of Americans are like, look, your bargain is acceptable. We didn't ask for this, and you did. And so you're going to get people going, okay, fine. I would imagine today that the people who won the election, in their own words, by the way, which is it's in our thumbnail, the folks from AIPAC, the folks from the Jewish Israeli lobbies in the United States that won a primary seat, a chance to run for the big seat, and they didn't even win the big seat. They probably will, but you never know. Weird things happen. My guess is that they created more people who are anti-Zionist and they are going to define as anti-Semitic than they could have ever imagined by simply weighing in on something that didn't really have anything to do. There are less than 1,500 Jewish people in Kentucky for. And you put $20 million into that race for what? Ari Shapir.
Who voted for that?
To shoot them all.
No, not shoot them all. Start shooting them until they get business out of politics and they start representing who we are instead of their money interests. Yeah, violence. That's the only way shit changes, man.
Okay.
Look at history. Tell me when a regime has changed with voting. I mean, I know. I'm not trying. That's not fair because you haven't studied this stuff.
Well, no, I'm not trying to, murder politicians. I'm not trying to, do what I don't like that others do that I would like to change, so I will shoot somebody because I'm pissed off that they're shooting somebody else.
Yeah.
It's not the way that I think, but that's fine. We think differently.
I think even if you don't want to like shoot somebody, don't vote. Voting is you saying, complicitly saying, I support this system, and I don't support it anymore. I don't. We're killing people in Yemen. We're murdering like families in Yemen that aren't associated with any sort of terrorist thing. It was just an oopsie when we like kill a wedding party. And Obama, the fucking hope change guy, just refuses to comment on it. That's cool. Do what you want. It's not going to change. Your voting is not going to change that.
What does change is that with proper messaging, people can be really excited about killing people in Yemen who have nothing to do with me, and they don't do anything that relates to me. The same way that people are now telling me that I've been at war with Iran for 47 years. It's crazy because I signed up to join our U.S. military. I joined the Air Force in 2009 when we were actively involved in two conflicts. We had one going on in Iraq and we had another one going on in Afghanistan. Right? We actually were at war with those groups. Whether we called it a war or not is irrelevant. And apparently what I didn't know is that I was signing up because we were also at war with Iran. And yes, I understand that Iran was funding a bunch of proxies in the area. But to act like we somehow had some active conflict that was going on for more than my entire lifetime with a country that we didn't have a conflict going on for my entire lifetime, it's absurd. It's absurd. We were like, you're just a bunch of belligerent people in this little space in the world. Your ability to affect policy in the United States is zero. Your ability to reach into the United States is zero. Your ability to hurt U.S. troops only happens when we extend U.S. troops into that small sphere that you're able to influence. Is it great that that happened? No. Did we retaliate each time as far as I can tell? Yeah, I think we did. So now we're doing this slop where we're just going to pretend that we have to care about wars in places. Why? Why do we have to care? Because somebody told us that that's the position that we're holding on to, and that's what America is about. America is about bombing small countries that are all over the place. Like, at some point, we want to go, is there a guy that would represent the position of not bombing places all over the place? Is there a dude who would say that he wants to handle America first, that we've got enough problems at home that we could start with? Oh, yeah, that guy was Donald J. Trump. He said it multiple times. No more endless wars. No more getting involved in the Middle East bullshit. No more going out there and picking fights that last forever. Let's solve our problems. Let's solve them domestically. So there was this like push, I don't know, a man who came out and said, I'm for peace. I am peace. Everybody else wants to start wars. I want to end wars and I want to get out of them. Like literally that was Donald Trump's proposition. This is how he lured in the people who would otherwise have been really into like a Thomas Massie or a Rand Paul. The libertarian types that were like, I'm sick of our money going into these conflicts. Now, Ari Shafir, as far as I know, is an atheist. He's ethnically Jewish and he's an atheist when it comes to faith. So he's missing a lot of key components. Again, I don't think he's speaking for a lot of people, but he's speaking for a growing group of people. The question is how many of those people actually have the ability to carry out the kind of stuff he's talking about?
I know one way that it'll change. I can look at history and tell you this is the way things change. Look at whenever a black guy gets shot, it's like, oh, it's bad. If this is a riot, no one comments on it. Those things go under the radar. When there's a riot in Baltimore, it's like, hold on, we've got to rethink the system here in Baltimore because people went crazy.
That was during the Freddie Gray stuff. This is like prior to the BLM stuff in 2020, like long before. This is years before BLM.
That's just in history, here and elsewhere. That's the only way shit changes.
All right, we'll agree to disagree on that.
And I guarantee the only...
Well, all right, that's pretty uncomfortable for everybody to look at here. Like it kind of hurts your feelings. Don't really want to talk about that. AIPAC. What are they called again? This is the, here they are. They're on the screen. This is America's pro-Israel lobby. They only have 200,000 followers. They get an awful lot more views than I do. Interesting. I've got more followers, but they get more views. I'm sure that's normal. Congratulations to U.S. Navy SEAL Ed Galrine, which is how you actually pronounce it. Not Gilrain or Gilron. Anyway, for defeating anti-Israel incumbent Thomas Massie. Anti-Israel could also be read as pro-America or pro-Kentucky. That'd be fine too. But no, anti-Israel. Pro-Israel Americans, whatever that looks like, are proud to back candidates who support a strong American-Israeli alliance and help defeat those who work to undermine it. Being pro-Israel is good policy and it's good politics. The second one is definitely true. It is certainly good politics. Now, you guys may have not been aware of who these people are previously. maybe this race kind of woke you up. And here, let me just say, maybe you didn't have a really good sense of what they were all about. Is that possible? Maybe your propaganda capabilities were low. I would like to give you AIPAC in their own words. Pretty sure I have this thing on here. Oh, there it is. AIPAC propaganda video. There it is. Clip number 1. Enjoy this. This is produced for you. I'm hoping you'll consume it and know what's up.
Let's talk about AIPAC.
Today, AIPAC.
On Capitol Hill, AIPAC.
AIPAC.
You may have heard our name, but how much do you really know about AIPAC? AIPAC is an American organization that works to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. This partnership advances America's interests and democratic values and helps keep Israel safe. Our 6 million members are U.S. citizens, Democrats, Republicans, and independents from every part of the country who urge our elected leaders to enact pro-Israel policies. This includes expanding America's defense partnership with Israel, supporting life-saving security assistance, confronting Iran and its terror proxies, and promoting peace and normalization. Being pro-Israel is good policy, and AIPAC members make sure it's good politics, too. We raise money to help elect pro-Israel candidates for Congress from both parties. And we take the political fight to our opponents, helping defeat anti-Israel candidates running for the House or Senate. AIPAC is leading the fight in Washington to secure the future of the U.S.-Israel relationship. The actions of pro-Israel Americans today will help determine the future of this bond and the fate of both countries.
That was real. That is a real ad. That is their real ad. They actually made that. And they made that so that you would understand what it's all about. This is fake. And it sounds more real to me.
Hello, I'm from the U.S. government. Does something feel wrong in the world, but you can't put your finger on it? Are you yearning to fight injustice and be part of something bigger? Do you do your own research? If so, you've been chosen to participate in our new PSYOP, QAnon. PSYOPs are usually carried out by our intelligence agencies in countries we've invaded or whose governments we've overthrown, in order to convince the local population that we're there to help them. QAnon is just like that, except the target isn't a foreign population. It's you. And the government we're planning to overthrow is... follow the white rabbit. At the heart of this PSYOP is Q, a government insider who will give you advance warning about major events, like the arrest of Hillary and deep state leaders, which never happened, and the end of the Democratic Party in 2018, who actually went on to win the House that year. And if years of fake predictions start to get you down, don't worry. Trust the plan. The best part of this PSYOP is you'll believe you're in a PSYOP, except that's not the PSYOP you're actually in, but the PSYOP where we let you think you're in a PSYOP. PSYOP. Q-proof. Joining QAnon is easy because at its core there are some truths. Like, the media really does lie to you. There really are powerful predators out there, and there really is a global pedophile ring that ritually abuses kids. But as you follow Q's droppings, you'll gradually LARP yourself deep into the rabbit's rectum, where you'll find others who yearn to fight injustice just like you. The 5G crew, the Plandemic crowd, the FEMA camps, and chemtrail folks too. All LARP together into a single LARP we can control. Where we LARP one, we LARP all. In exchange for all this entertainment and newfound sense of purpose, all we ask for in return is your help. No, you fucking idiots, not to arrest Hillary. Q has convinced patriots, even the guy who spent decades warning you about the police state and martial law. That martial law is now a good thing. What's that? When do we take down the deep state? Aw, honey. The guy who exposed the real deep state is being tortured by it right now. And where are you? Oh, that's right. Q told you to trust the plan and have a big circle jerk on Aiken. The Great Awakening. And that's the purpose of QAnon, to convince those who would normally be on the front line of fighting our shitfuckery to sit by and watch as we prosecute your truth tellers, purge your justice system, and rat fuck this election. QAnon. Nothing can stop what's coming, because you'll be sitting on your ass when it does. Hello, I'm from...
How many of you guys have seen that too many times? They have the same music. They have the same feel. One of them actually sounded like it was true. The other one sounded like they were trying to sell me a shovel full of bullshit. So that's pretty cool. If you're watching on Rumble, give us a like. If you're watching on YouTube, same thing. Subscribe to the channels, one or both. That would be great. If you hear an ad right now from the folks at Spotify, we made that space for them. So we appreciate that. That's one of the ways that this thing gets monetized. Thanks for being part of the program. For all of you that are watching there, if you have not given us a comment on one of those places, feel free to do it. I'd like to read what you guys have to say as well. Yeah, you know what else I'd love to know? I'd love to know who gets to control things. Who are the people that you can't say no to? That seems like something that the Q people and the AIPAC people were talking about, right? If you could just find a group of people that you couldn't say no to, that would be a real powerful group indeed. Would they represent, like, I don't know, a few million and maybe like 2% of the U.S. population? Yeah, maybe so.
Years ago, my father was a big supporter of Jewish people and Israel. He's not Jewish. He wasn't Jewish, but he was a great friend of a lot of Jewish people.
Oh.
And if you said, let's say 15 years ago, maybe not even that long, anything bad about Israel or Jewish people, you were finished as a politician, right?
You're done.
You were finished. You wouldn't do that, Congressman.
You would not do that. Why would
you wouldn't
that?
do it anyway, but nobody would do it. The most powerful lobby in this country, by far, was Israel and Jewish people. Today, it's almost like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened? What happened to Schumer? What happened to all these people? Schumer's like a Palestinian, right? It's a Palestinian. You got to remember that, though. The power, Miriam, of this lobby, this powerful, and it was for good, not for bad, of being Jewish and of Israel. And unfortunately, they're not necessarily the same, because you have Jewish people living in New York who really don't support. You look at the New York Times, and they do not support Israel, and I don't think they support Jewish people, you want to know the truth. And you wonder where it all came from. But why did it come? And they have to get together. They have to be strong. Because it's never been under attack like this. It's never been under siege like this. But 15 years ago, it was the absolute most powerful. You couldn't have an AOC +3. They wouldn't have a chance of being elected anywhere.
Guys, I'm going to do the hand thing, and then I want to point. I'm going to do some hand pointing and some moving of the things. Donald Trump is telling you that he wants to make things great again the way they were. I mean, that's what he told me. Now, when I heard Make America Great Again, what I thought was that we were going to go back to Christian values, that we were going to go back to constitutional values, that we were going to try to make sure that, I don't know, the little guy had a say, that American businesses were functional, that gas prices were low, that the economy favored people who wanted to be able to move up, kind of a middle class, right? I don't know. That's what I heard. What I heard was like a nostalgia for a time when America was great. I didn't know that the time when America was great was 15 years ago, when the Israeli lobby was the strongest lobby in the world, and that you couldn't ever go against it. But that, I mean, I'm uncovering this and looking at it and going, making me think about things in a new way. What happens when you run out of track on this choo-choo train, though? Because you can only throw $20 million at an election and get a bunch of people in Kentucky to take on a guy who doesn't do any debates, who has no strong policy positions, who nobody can even pronounce his actual name, who don't know like how old he is or where he came from, but they think that he's somehow younger than a guy who's more than a decade younger. What is that? So here's some AI questions, because I had questions this morning about demographics, about numbers. I think these things matter. I think it's just, in general, I remember I had a boss one time who asked me a question. He goes, "Hey, Kyle," before they hired me, he's like, "How many people live in the United States?" This was going back to like 2002, maybe. I go, "About 300 million. And he was like, "How do you know that?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" Like, what do you mean, how do I know that? And he was like, "How do you know roughly what the population is of this country?" And I go, because I pay attention to this country. I kind of want to know, how much of the world do we represent? And when I deal with people, what percentage of the country are they talking about? When I think about the sentiment of what happens in Dallas, should I know roughly the size of the urban areas that I live in, so I kind of have a sense of what that looks like? Yeah, it seems like you should. So here you go. How many people identify as Christians in the United States? Roughly 62 to 69% of people. That's somewhere between 210 and 235 million. This is Pew Research that they're citing there. Pew says it's on the lower end of it. There's some other groups that say slightly higher, 65 to 69% Gallup. So the numbers of people that identify themselves as Christian is a majority of Americans. And that's important, in so much as we understand a little bit of the demographics. Then I want to start whittling down to the people that we're actually selling to when you talk about the amount of money that was spent in the Massie race. Okay? How many people are Catholics in this country? Just relevant. I'm Catholic. A lot of people I meet are Catholic. A lot of people in law enforcement that I met were Catholic. Mormons and Catholics are pretty dominant in the FBI. Just for whatever that's worth. It's a data point. Doesn't mean anything per se. There's approximately 65 to 72 million people self-identified as Catholic. A good chunk of them will probably be in the Joe Biden type Catholics, which I think are actually satanic. But Catholics identified as Catholic, fill out the survey, go into the military. Do you have a declared religion that we're going to put on your dog tags? Catholic. Yeah, 65, 72 million, roughly 20% of the adult population in the U.S. So your voting bloc is 20%. We've gone from Christians at large, somewhere between 62 and 69%. Now we're down to 20% with Catholics. Okay, so that's how you would market to certain groups of people. You wouldn't want to have a campaign that was explicitly to Catholic people. That would be a losing campaign, 20%. Like, you can't win with 20% of the vote. What about Christian Zionists, which is a group of people that I've been more and more aware of over the last couple of years? And it's a pretty strange group to be, because I don't understand how you can have those two things in common. I don't know how you can be a Christian and recognize that that your Lord and Savior, if you're a Christian, that's what you believe, that the person that came in replaced the covenant, fulfilled and replaced, didn't come to obey the law, but came to fulfill the law, right? This sort of thing. You guys can go back and get your scriptural basis on this. But it's really hard for you to have a position that is Christian Zionist, and yet 20 to 50 million people in this country fall into that category. About 80 million people fall into the evangelical Christian category. 80 million. So slightly more than Catholics, which are a pretty solid voting bloc. Then you've got 20 to 50, so less than 20% of the Americans. This is actually looking quite a bit smaller than that. From 80 to somewhere around maybe 20 to 40 million. So it might be 10%, it might be 5% of the US population is your Christian Zionist evangelical base. All right, and now I'm going to scroll backwards to another search I did, which was asking about, well, how many Jewish people are in this country? Because theoretically, if you're going to talk about a Israeli/American alliance, you'd have to have some interest in Israel. And I don't know what interest anybody in America would have with Israel per se, outside of a religious belief that I think is misfounded in the Christian Zionist movement. And then potentially you have like relatives or family members there, and you have like a need for a Jewish home state. Okay, fine. I'm down with all that. So that's 6.8. So maybe 56 million people is what we're looking at. That could theoretically say that there was this like real strong alliance. Well, in a country of 350 million people, how do you think that makes a majority? And how does that end up being a group that advocates for a position that we should all hold on to? And why would that make them the strongest lobby in America that 15 years ago you couldn't say no to them per Donald Trump? Demographically, there are approximately 5.8 to 6.1 million eligible Jewish voters, representing about 2.4 to 3% of the total population. This is where I came down to it based just on the numbers alone. And I think this is important to recognize. When an infinitesimally small, like what would be, so standard deviations are the way that you divide out a bell curve when it comes to the size of certain things, right? That you can step out one standard deviation and you're going to include something like 65%. I have to double check. It's been a while since I've done the bell curve and the statistics, but 65%. Then you move out another standard deviation. You end up with 95% of all things captured. You'd have to go 3 standard deviations out to capture 99%. In this case, we're talking that like the position you're holding is 2 standard deviations outside of the norm. The fractional number is basically, it's on the tail of irrelevancy to be a 2 or a 3% group of anything. And even 20%, it's a big block, but 20% is not even close to a majority, nor is it enough to be able to, especially if it's incompatible with the other 80%. Just look at the numbers, and it really, it kind of blows my mind. AIPAC says that they have 6 million grassroots members. That would mean that every single Jewish American voter is a member of AIPAC, or they got a good chunk of them. Now, here's the other thing that I thought was really interesting. Oh, that's a primary turnout. Sorry. What about Jewish voters? Because you just had Donald Trump out there talking to Miriam Adelson, talking out about how strong the Jewish lobby was, talking about Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's a Democrat, right? And he's a Jewish guy. And now he's a Palestinian, apparently, per Donald Trump. Roughly 60 to 65% of the Jewish adults in the United States identify as Democrat or lean towards the left. 60 to 65% of adults in the U.S. are Democrats if they're Jewish. Translate into approximately 3.5 million Jewish voters who are Democrats. Here's your breakdown. Got a little bit more on here. Okay. Independents, 7 to 15%. Democrats, 60-65. Republicans, 23-29%. So what you're saying is that as we look at this, a tiny minority of Jewish voters are Republicans, and yet they spent 150% more money in a primary, Republican primary, in a tiny little place in Kentucky, which was a safe red seat. And the Trump campaign and the Trump people and the GOP is claiming victory with that. That seems kind of problematic. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on record and said this is not an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory when a foreign lobby, she's referring to AIPAC in this case, a lobby that has a foreign focus would be at least fair. Can we not say that that's fair? If you say that you're part of the American-Mexican Political Action Committee, and people will be like, what is your purpose? And you'd be like, our goal is to make sure that America treats Mexico in the way that is happiest for Mexico. You'd go, oh, well, that seems kind of foreign focused. It's not anti-Semitic conspiracy theory when a foreign lobby or foreign focused lobby, I'll even correct her language for her, openly brags that they bought 2 congressional seats with candidates who will be loyal to Israel. What did they actually say? Their words. Ed Galrain's victory in Kentucky and Clay Fuller's win in Georgia ensures 2 outspoken pro-Israel voices. Not America first, not America doing the right thing for both America and Israel. Pro-Israel voices are positioned to fill seats that were previously held by outspoken detractors, Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Our community was proud to help pro-Israel candidates win these races. So the place that we're sitting at right now is that if somebody tells you that they're going to do something, then they tell you they did something, as is what's on the screen right now. And then you go, hey, I don't like the thing that you just said you were going to do, and I don't like the thing that you just said you did. I'm not real crazy about that. I'm not real crazy about the idea that American politicians have fealty to a non-American country. I think that's problematic. And it doesn't matter whether you're Israeli. It doesn't matter if they were pro-Iranian candidates. It wouldn't matter if they were pro-Chinese candidates. I think we would have a real easy time recognizing that the American-Chinese Political Action Committee would be something where we'd be like, hey, wait a minute. Don't we have like counterintelligence investigations into Chinese people in this country? Don't we sort of like look at them as sort of a geopolitical foe? And if you think we don't do that about Israel, you don't understand what Israel is. We regularly do counterintelligence investigations. We have Israeli spies who are currently going on podcasts that were stealing information from the United States. You don't have to do that, generally speaking, with your allies, especially not your best allies. We don't have any French spies that I'm aware of that are captured for doing espionage against the United States government. I don't think we have any of them in custody. Please fact check me if I'm wrong about that. I don't think there are any Sean Connery from The Rock type characters who stole the JFK files and then got put into Alcatraz. I don't think that's real. I'm fairly confident it's not. I do know that I saw a podcast yesterday that was celebrating Pollard, who famously stole information from the United States and then claimed that he was anally raped for weeks on end, which I don't think was true, and said that every joint in his body was broken. And I don't think that was true. He just seems like a liar. And he's out there being celebrated. And he's meeting with the American ambassador to Israel, who's more likely the Israeli ambassador to America, and a guy named Mike Huckabee, who shows you where his alliance is. That's pretty strange. AIPAC responded to Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, "We are Americans." It reminds me of that moment from the movie Civil War, where the guy wearing the weird, funky sort of Elton John glasses asked the questions, yes, but what type of Americans? Because it seems pretty clear that this is not the type of Americans that the Mel K's and the women who tweet at me on Twitter say when they're talking about we the people. I'm pretty sure that we're not the same types of Americans. I'm pretty sure that they're not bacon cheeseburger nationalists. They don't think that there's a dominant culture in America that was good and it should be restored for the good of all, which, by the way, bacon cheeseburger nationalism protects the rights of the minority. That's one of the positions of bacon cheeseburger nationalism. We recognize your right not to have cheese. We recognize your right not to eat a burger or bacon. We recognize all of those things, and we don't think you're a terrible person for it. But we also recognize that you're not one of us, and we're not going to pretend like you are. You can be a non-bacon eater. You can be a non-beef eater. You can be a non-bun eater. You can be a non-cheese person. Those things are all totally acceptable. The Bacon Cheeseburger Nationalist Group doesn't look at you and go, oh, you're a problem. You need to be dealt with. They don't do that. That's not what we do to our neighbors who are not 100% like us. We just go, oh, sounds like we're going to have to agree to disagree because bacon is delicious. It's the best. And if you're not a bacon person, that's okay. More for me. But also more for the majority of us. Because we are the majority. Period. The end. It's not particularly negotiable. I can red pill almost anybody with bacon, it turns out. If I snuck it into your food, you're like, this is freaking delicious. Well, like, what am I eating? Have you ever seen those videos where they do this, where they take a guy who's vegan and he's like eating, and he's like, this is a non-beef burger. This is fake meat. And the guy's like, well, no, it's real meat. He's the guy's like, well, I'm a vegetarian. He was like, yeah, but meat's delicious. Like, it's great. Like, why are you not eating it? Like, look how much you like it. I took one of my buddies when I was in high school, 17 years old. He went vegan for some reason. I like he did. I don't know why he did it. My best buddy goes vegan. And what I realized that one of the cardinal sins in his mental organization was food waste, especially animal-based food waste, like an animal that had died and it was going to waste. And so we worked in this Italian restaurant. And at the end of the night, they would throw out the extra meat sauce, which was incredible. They would stew it in like pig's feet in these huge vats. This was like homemade Italian place, right? So they'd stew these huge vats of pig's feet in there. So there was bacon. They would throw in ground beef by like the pallet full. And so you'd have all this, just delicious fats swirling around in there with all these different, like very, very easy to digest proteins. And they would throw it out at the end of the night if you didn't eat it. Like they would just toss it. And they would throw it out either way. There was too much of it. And so I told my buddy, I'm like, look, man, they're going to throw this stuff out. Those animals died in vain. And I actually ended up convincing him off the vegan platform. Right? Because he didn't want to be a food waster. And he immediately was like leaner and stronger and faster. And like everything about it was better. It's like, I wasn't mad at him when he lived in a different position, but I was happy when he joined me because it was better. It was definitely better. I feel like going through this timeline because there were a couple of really awful things from the AIPAC folks. They're full of stuff that is like quoting people from Not America. They're Americans that are focused on Not America a lot. And they're Americans that are focused on gloating about candidates who have a U.S.-Israeli partnership. That seems really, really strange. They want to be mad at Ryan Grimm, who did some really good reporting about Epstein. How interesting. They've got Alex Witkoff, who's been doing negotiations. Isn't he part of the negotiation? No, that's Steve Witkoff, different Witkoff. Even in his concession speech, Donald Trump had to take a shot at Israel/Jews. I wonder why anti-Semitism is exploding in America while politicians casually use Jewish associations as political punchlines and smears. He calls it vile. I want to actually play you that so-called smear. Because one, it was really funny. It was a really personable thing to do. And I think it's totally fair. And then I'm going to give you a little taste of a liberal weighing in on it. And then you tell me if Tim Miller is making sense to you.
I would have come out sooner, but I had to call my opponent and concede. And it took a while to find Ed Galrine in Tel Aviv. I did get the call through, though. I have called and conceded the race. We've been honorable the whole time, and we're going to stay that way.
Making a joke is not being dishonorable. Making a joke is not a punchline at Israelis and Jews. This is Tim Miller, who probably disagrees with most of us that are watching this program right now and me sitting here hosting it. He probably disagrees with most of the stuff that we have to say. He runs he's at the Bulwark. They hold a very different political outlook than I do. In response to this clip, he said, it's strange to see outrage around this. If the Gay Lebanese Political Action Committee spent $35 million attacking Thomas Massie, I don't think I'd be mad if he made a joke about Beirut pride in the concession speech. You can't smoke somebody with a haymaker and then cry foul when they kick you off the mat. Or kick you from the mat, rather, so he's on the ground. If you knock somebody out, which is what happened last night in Kentucky 4, with $20 million, that was openly and aggressively being bragged as being a victory. If you're openly bragging that you took somebody out because they were a non-pro-Israeli candidate, and the guy's like, hey, bunch of money came in, we had to go find my opponent, he was in another country, and that country is the country that gave all the money. I think that's the lightest and chillest joke. And rather than be like the Mormons, who were like, yeah, if you'd like to learn more about why our great policy also makes great politics, check us out here at AIPAC. They could do that, or they could be the permanent victim. And so what you've got is a bunch of people who are looking and saying, not only are you guys assholes, you're sore winners, and you're crying victim even though you already took what you wanted. I don't know that Americans respond well to that. I don't think it's a bacon cheeseburger national position. To be a shitty winner is not something that we look favorably upon in this country. They just don't. You don't get to destroy the other team in a fight that looks kind of unfair, looks very unexpected, and then slap their hands away when they walk down across the aisle to do the soccer good game routine. If you have 3 kids that are like a head and a half taller than everybody else on the field, if your team has a bunch of ringers coming in from out of the district, and then they win, and you're like, good thing you've got that growth spurt hormone going on over there, and then you're upset, you're like, they're accusing us of something. It's like, yeah, you came in with $20 million from outside the area. You ran a candidate who nobody heard of, who was old and basically didn't add any value, as far as anyone can tell, to the local race. And the guy's making a good-hearted joke about it. Here's another little good-hearted joke, which is maybe a little bit more scary. The Secretary of War rolled in to campaign in his quote-unquote personal capacity against a Republican in a Republican primary. Why? Because the war has nothing to do with Israel? Or because the Israelis really need this war and they put $20 million behind the guy who was calling out a problem? This is an issue, and it goes way deeper than this. It's more problematic than one guy revealing an Epstein file or one guy standing up and being the lone voice in Congress. If you're looking for everybody in America, they must agree with you, they must fall in line. That is not the America that we live in, and Ari Shafir ends up being correct. Because I think not every American is ready to step into that camp, but you're going to recruit a lot more people to the, I don't think we're voting our way out of this. And by the way, that was the long form version of, we're not voting our way out of this.
There's one thing I saw on Fox. They were saying, oh my goodness, we're ready for war. We're about to restart this war. We were supposed to restart this war today, but we can't restart this war today. The war can't start today. They said we got to wait a day. And then it occurred to me, where was the Secretary of War yesterday? He was here. Listen. Wait. No. Look on the bright side. No more wars. 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 Guys, knock that off. You're going to make me feel good about losing. What I wanted to do was give you all credit. When they saw the influencers here, they panicked. They sent the Secretary of War here, and you stopped the war for a day. All right. We know we don't want a war, and we know why young people are, and middle-aged people are against the next war, because we'd be the ones fighting it. They're trying to bring back the draft. Screw that. We're not going to fight. We're not going to fight some other country's wars, are we? No. What else do we stand for? We don't want to send our money overseas. Okay, I'll go for that. I've got a bill to do that. I've also got a bill to end the ed in the Department of Education. Rand Paul says he wants to pass a law that you need one day to read 10 pages of every bill. I asked Rand, what are you going to do about my bill that's one sentence long to end the Department of Education? That'd be like 5 minutes to read that bill. By the way, do you know how many pages the Epstein Files Transparency Act was? 2 pages.
That's a pretty gracious speech. He's having a good time with it. It's probably pretty tough to lose an election like that, I have to imagine. And they pulled out all the stops on this guy. And he's out there just riffing with his crowd. This is the things that people like Donald Trump. When he brings up his high points and he takes the high road. This is not him going out there and taking cheap shots other than the Tel Aviv thing, which was a joke he made previously. He was following up on a previous joke that he made a couple days ago, saying that they gave him the concession speech number or the concession phone number, but it had a Tel Aviv area code. It's cutesy. I think that's reasonable if somebody spends $20 million in your race and they have nothing to do with your race at all, and they come in from outside and they're trying to push that out there. There you go. And what is he talking about? Oh, the no new wars. You heard people chanting it. That was organic. That wasn't like Tom Massie came up with it. They stopped the war for a day. And so he gave his supporters credit in a tongue-in-cheek way for slowing down the restart of the Iranian war. It just turns out that's exactly what Donald Trump ran on. No war at all. Prevent World War III. Restore peace in the Middle East. He wanted to build an Iron Dome over America. Instead, we're exporting all of our missile systems overseas. Didn't he also say that he was going to end the Fed? There's an executive order that Donald Trump signed saying end the Department of Education. I thought we were going to solve these problems. And again, we outsource violence to one guy. Everybody thought they were going to get it done. They were like, hey, Donald Trump is saying all the stuff that we want. Kind of a mixture of populism and some popular libertarianism. Those are all good. What did Donald Trump say about this war, by the way? Apparently, we need to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, you crazy bastards.
Coach Wall.
Oh, that was the bad victory speech. Hold on a second here. I got to get the Donald Trump talking on Fox. Yeah, he put off the Iran war. He put off the war, and Tom Massie was playing against that, and that's a problem.
Other countries have come to me and they've said we were getting ready to do a very major attack tomorrow. I've put it off for a little while, hopefully maybe forever, but possibly for a little while, because we've had very big discussions with Iran, and we'll see what they amount to. I was asked by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, and some others if we could put it off for 2 or 3 days, a short period of time, because they think that they are getting very close to making a deal. And if we can do that where there's no nuclear weapon going into the hands of Iran, I think, and if they're satisfied, we will be probably satisfied also.
Got it. So you put off the war. Your Secretary of War was busy doing his thing in his personal capacity. He's totally not a Hatch Act violation, as he stated. By the way, saying that it's not a Hatch Act violation before you do a Hatch Act violation doesn't change it. Someone saying like, hey, I need you to give me all your money, and you've got a gun in your hand. You know, give me all your money. By the way, this is a voluntary transaction. It doesn't work that way, it turns out. Pretty silly. Here's something from a Israeli news source called Haaretz. There's 2 A's for some reason. This was their tweet. It got 3 million views yesterday. Nobody liked it. Statistically, 1,600 people thought this was good. The most consequential Republican primary, ... for Israel is happening in Kentucky. This was happening yesterday as the primary vote was going on. Do you know how strange that is? Do you know how many Israeli votes are consequential for me in Texas? None of them. 0. How many Israeli votes are consequential, and let alone be the most consequential? What is the most consequential vote in Israel for any of you? I'm just holding the mirror up. This is my mirror test. This is the same thing I do when someone tells me that something is sexual harassment or not sexual harassment. If a woman does something and I hold the mirror up and I switch the roles and I go, imagine that a man did that thing, and everyone goes like, ooh, that guy's going to get fired. HR is going to be visiting his desk. I go like, oh, well, then it's probably not okay, right? Can we not just say things that are reasonable? We can hold the mirror up and we can decide whether or not it makes sense. If you come up and I do something to you and then you hold the mirror up and I'm like, okay, oh, that's a real Christian principle. Do unto others, right? Okay, so imagine this Christian principle, this mirror test, this golden rule. The most consequential Israeli primary for America, for Texas, for your county, is happening right now in Israel. I don't even know what political parties are in Israel. That's how little I would know. That's how little, like, what goes on in America has to do with Israel as far as I'm concerned, because it doesn't affect me even a little bit, even if we're sending a bunch of money there. We may send them billions, but I don't know who they are, and I don't give a shit what they think. This is a pretty incredible statement. And when you go to the actual story, here's what the story says. Pro-Israel groups pour record sums into bid to defeat GOP rebel Thomas Massie in Kentucky primary. There's so much even in the headline that should make you just go, Tom Massie is a GOP rebel because he runs on and stands with the same things that the president ran on. That was the GOP plank. That seems problematic, doesn't it? They're a pro-Israel group. They've dumped record money in, but I've told you, you can do the numbers. There's about 1,500 Jewish people in that district. And even less of them are Israeli. And a bunch of them are probably Democrats statistically. You know why? Because that's just the way the statistics work out. 60+%. So for essentially a non-constituency, pro-Israel groups dropped a record sum of money in. And this is why this is a problem for people. This wouldn't be the same problem if it happened in New York City. It wouldn't be the same problem if it happened in Los Angeles. It wouldn't be a problem if you found like, hey, there's a bunch of these types of people in this place and they theoretically have this interest. And so they put a bunch of their own money in to do this. The issue has always been and will continue to be when some money from outside of an area comes in and then it has a massive impact on the space that you're trying to deal with. You start asking real questions like, oh, shit. Well, then what happens? How do we handle this? What do those numbers even mean? Here's my last little piece on this particular topic, and then we'll get into like a couple other news stories, which, by the way, this was the dominant news story on multiple different outlets today. Turnout in the primary for Kentucky 4 by year. Let me read my prompt to you. How many voters turned out each year over the past 10 years, so 5 election cycles for Congress, in the Kentucky 4 primary? I was very interested. The reason I'm very interested is because we haven't passed the SAVE Act yet, which apparently is a Republican priority. We haven't solidified that our elections are reasonable or secure or safe or fair. You know who used to talk about that a lot? This guy named Donald Trump. And it was kind of because this basement candidate named Joe Biden, who was too old, was too frail, was too weak, who had zero ideas, who didn't debate, who couldn't step outside on his own 2 feet, that guy ended up apparently with a record turnout and a record number of votes in his favor. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you're out here looking at this. Let's go back to 2016. There were no votes cast in the primary because incumbent Thomas Massie and Democratic challenger Calvin Seidel ran completely unopposed in their respective parties, so the primary didn't need to happen. 0 votes cast in 2016. In 2018, there were a total across Democrat and Republican of 44,000. I'm rounding up, 43,800 total votes across the two. There were 3 candidates that were contesting for the Democratic primary, and they drew 43,000. The Republican was 0 votes again because Tom Massie ran unopposed 2 years in a row. Let's move to 2020. And let's just read the note on it. Driven by high engagement and expanded mail-in voting, the Republican primary drew a total of 84,683 votes. The contested Democrat primary brought in another 71,000. There were 155, almost 156,000 votes in 2020. How many of you think that there was a rigged election in 2020? How many of you thought that there was a problem with expanded mail-in voting because we had COVID and all the other bullshit that was going on? A lot of people. A lot of people on the political right. People who are Republican, people who voted for Donald Trump. A lot of people think that thing. And at that time, in the Republican primary, you had 84,000. That was in the highest turnout regular. Okay, let's move on to 2022. The Republican primary drew about 61,000 total votes. 61,000 total votes with no Democrat primary at all because the nominee ran unopposed, and so they didn't need a primary. So we're going to just run the numbers here. 0 Republican votes in 2016, 0 in 2018, about 85,000 in 2020 during a weird year of weird numbers where everyone who thought, man, that's awfully weird. In 2022, when things started to normalize again, we had about 61,000 votes in the Republican primary, and then things settled back to what happens in primaries in general, which is that people do not care. They don't care about primaries. They never do. And a terrible turnout is pretty standard. Incumbent Tom Massie had a three-way split in a contested primary. He won almost 40,000 votes out of the 52,600 that were cast. So your Republican primary last cycle had about 52,600. And Massie got the lion's share at 40,000 votes. He blew out the other three opponents, or the three-way race. And then we have this one. And in a shocking turn of events, with $20 million injected of outside money, 2026, yesterday, there were roughly 145,000 votes. This is very similar to the 155,000 votes from 2020. 41,000 in the Democrat primary, where you had challengers there. And in the two-way race between Ed Gilrain, or Gilrine rather, and Tom Massie, I don't even know his name, they had 104,071 votes. And I think there may be a few more because it's still like the last few are tiling. You had 104,000 votes in the primary. And the last time they did it was 52,000. So you had double the number of votes in this primary. Just leave that there for a second because that seems like a problem. You doubled it in a year that's off year. This is Sam Parker, who is incidentally also being sued by Alexis Wilkins for $5 million because of his statements pointing out a bunch of anomalies about her life. They didn't like that. How did Massie get 2020'd? Wait, he's kind of saying it up front there. Massie increased the turnout in his votes for the primary by 19%. That is a shocking amount to do after 2 years, to get 19% more. They had a massive grassroots effort. We talked about some of it. Some of you guys probably saw it on social media. They pushed a bunch of things. I agree that Twitter is not real life, but there you have it. They got almost 20% more people to vote for him year on year, or cycle on cycle, if you want to do it that way. Ed Gilrain increased his opposition turnout because he's representing the only opposition by 357%. One of these things is not like the other. In other words, one of these things is not believable to me. So you can't be someone who talks about Donald Trump got an election stolen and then look at a crazy anomaly like this and then say, oh, well, obviously, if you inject $20 million of Israeli money in, or pro-Israeli American money in, whatever the hell that means, if you do that, then you're going to end up with a voting turnout that you can buy. You can buy not just the primary seat, but you can buy a turnout that doubles the entire turnout from 2 years prior. And by the way, 2 years prior in 2024 was a massive win. That was a Donald Trump win, which was in line with the general voting for general elections in a presidential cycle. This is a non-presidential, off-year, midterm election primary. And you got 357% more people to turn out for opposition? Nope. Does anyone believe that? Do normal people look at that and go like, obviously that explains because, well, he was a Navy SEAL and he's an old guy and he's a farmer and nobody can pronounce his name. So like, of course, I mean, it makes perfect sense to me that that's what would be going on. Do you think that the Donald Trump claims were enough to push him forward? I made this video yesterday because after I did our podcast, I was sort of fascinated by the fact that people didn't know how to say his name. It's pretty hard to imagine winning with no name recognition. In other words, the places where people would go to find out who you were didn't even know your name because you were so useless.
Ed Gilrain.
Ed Gilrain. Ed Gilrain.
Ed Gilrain.
How many conservative independents that sit in the kind of category of me looked at this and went, screw freaking you. You spent that much money. You ran up an incredible amount of dollars against a guy who was still a +1 for your vote for speaker, and you're going to lose what purple districts? What red seats are going to flip in November? Let me just leave my question from yesterday hanging out on the table. $20 million spent means $20 million not spent on another race. You can only spend it one time. They spent it on a primary to get 357% more opposition turnout against a guy who was already a safe Republican, who was going to be a +1 in your speaker vote, who was going to give you no additional advantage as a majority. And maybe he's the one guy that stands up and says, I don't think we should vote for things like kill switches in cars. And I think we should abolish the Department of Education. And I don't think you should have to go to a USDA butcher if you want to be able to swap beef with your freaking neighbor. And I'm not using that as a euphemism for having a good time with your neighbor. I'm saying if you want to buy the beef products that your neighbor wants to butcher up, shouldn't you be able to do that without asking the federal government for permission? Those are the kind of Tom Massie positions that are out there. Well, that guy obviously is a problem. He also thinks that we shouldn't do foreign aid to Uganda or to Mexico or to Central America or anywhere in Africa. And by the way, also Israel. You noticed we did the CBS interview yesterday with Ed O'Keefe, their senior politics guy. He named 5 different countries that he doesn't think we should be giving money to, including Ukraine. And they immediately honed in on, why don't you want to give money to Israel? Are you anti-Semitic? Is that your problem? Do you hate the Jews? Do you hate the Jews? Is that what's going on here? We sound like we are having a little bit of a problem here. Mr. Massie, we have found that you're guilty of disliking the Jews. Can you please answer the question? I know you have mentioned several other countries. They are not of our concern. We are most interested in what your position is on the Jews. We are CBS. We must get your answer right now. Speak it. Yeah. And he's like, no, hell no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I just don't think we should be giving money to any of these countries. And I don't like the fact that somebody came in and spent $20 million in my local race to run up the tally and get 357% more voter turnout. Let's do the numbers here real quick too. 2024, Massie had 39, almost 40,000 voters. He got 76% of the vote. Yesterday, he got about 47,500 voters. So he increased by 19% and got 45% of the vote because the overall total of the vote went up by 100%. It's 2x. Previous opponents in 2024, which was a presidential cycle. This was a big deal race during a time when things were going on. 12,664 votes for the opponents. One guy, Ed Galrain, managed to take the banner. Galrain, sorry, I keep saying it wrong because nobody says it right. I'm not doing this on purpose. Almost 58,000 votes. 357% performance increase. Incredible. Well done, Ed. What's amazing is that a bunch of people who are independents are not going to turn out to vote. And whatever they did then, maybe they'll grab it again, or maybe people will just not show up, or maybe Democrats take the seat. Wouldn't that be poetic justice to find out that Democrats end up with the seat, that they just took $20 million to get a shot at the seat? That might be the most, like, I'm not advocating voting for Democrats at all because I just don't advocate. I don't think voting makes a difference. But wouldn't it be amusing if that was the case? And it very well could be. Because I think people are going to be pissed off. They're like, wait, what? When my guys that were on the ground, like my friends that were on the ground, we talked to Bobby Sauce, we talked to dudes like, we talked to Ryan Matta out there. It's like, nobody knew anybody that was voting for this dude. They didn't even know how to say his name. And I don't know how to say his name. And I've heard it said correctly. Pretty sure I've heard him say it correctly.
Ed Galrain.
Ed Galrain. Ed Galrain.
Ed Galrain.
How many people know how to say that guy's freaking name? Not very many. I think Tom Massie might be the only one who can say it correctly. If you're watching over on Rumble, give us a like. If you like, if you're watching on YouTube, same thing. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I say the same thing every day, but every day some people change their mind and they go, yeah, I'm not subscribed. Or they find out they were subscribed and they are no longer. How interesting. Doesn't matter what platform. It could be Rumble, it could be YouTube. They all kind of screw a little bit with this stuff. I don't know if it's incidental or intentional. Just like I don't know what happened with double the number of primary votes. But whatever you guys are doing, make sure you guys are subscribed. Follow us over on Spotify, KyleSeraphinShow.com. You may hear an ad on the audio platforms from them. I left that little hole in there. This is how I know we're not voting our way out of it. You guys ready? You're going to like this a lot. This is also a Twitter story, but it's only because I downloaded this video clip and I thought it was fascinating. Imagine the amount of money. Again, I brought it up in the clip yesterday. I brought it up while the primary was about to kick off. How much money did you fail to put into other races? Why did you fight so aggressively and so hard against Tom Massie, who is a Republican, at least nominally, and he's a constitutional guy? This story is coming from Republicans Against Trump. I follow a bunch of these accounts, so you guys won't be shocked, but I like seeing what the opposition says. Breaking. In a major blow to Donald Trump, the Senate voted 50-47 to advance a resolution to limit military action against Iran, unless approved by Congress, the so-called War Powers Act. Republicans who voted yes Cassidy, who's already failed out in a primary, Collins, Murkowski, and Rand Paul. Only one Democrat was a no, and that was Fetterman. He sided with the Republicans. He's probably going to end up as an independent. He'll probably end up kind of like the guy who goes both ways. This was what we used to see out of West Virginia. There's a position for a couple of people like that. And the position exists because we basically have a Senate that is not serious and doesn't work the way that it used to. And why is that? If you listen to this program, you already know. Because we directly elect our senators, and we were never supposed to do that. So what does that sound like? Let's go. I think I've actually got the picture from that video. This is the War Powers resolution, and here's the ayes. I guess the ayes had it.
On this vote, the yeas are 50, the nays are 47. The motion is agreed to. The joint resolution is discharged and will be placed on the calendar.
Yep. So that was going on. But everybody was focused in on making sure that they got rid of Tom Massie. What a problem. The screwy thing is I think probably more people nationally who are political nerds know about Tom Massie than maybe even people in Kentucky where he represented them. How many of us would rather have a Tom Massie type character represent us and yet might not even be electable in a place like I live? So instead, I've got an 82,000-year-old guy who's been in office for 20 plus years, and he's going to continue to stay in until he dies. So I get John Carter. And I think people around me who love guns, I mean, if you think about the people that like constitutional liberties and freedom, there is something to be said for as lame as Austin and the Austin, Texas area is. Like, we're home to a bunch of gun stuff. We're home to a bunch of interesting tech. We're home to a bunch of like liberty-minded things. We have freaking Silencer Shop here. Their headquarters is just down the street from me, which is one of the big pushes. Interestingly, yesterday we talked about FRTs, forced reset triggers, gun lobby sort of issue, or a gun politics issue. And a lot of people were asking me, hey, what do you use? I'm only going to say it one time because I don't know that they're the best, but I'm currently using Atrius is the name of the company. I just bought a couple of them. I found a deal on them from a company called Dirty Bird. They had really good customer service as well, for whatever it's worth. So bought from them. That's cool. But we also talked about, in that case, the story of Mike Cargill. And Mike Cargill is a resident in Austin, or he's in Travis County. And Mike Cargill reached out to me this morning, and he was like, hey, I'm ready to come do an interview with you. And I was like, did I ask you that? Or did you just read my mind? And he goes, yeah, I read your mind. So we're going to do an interview with Mike Cargill, who, interestingly enough, has run for office locally. I think he's got a pretty interesting grip on what goes on in Texas politics, because he's probably a political nerd in the same way that many of you are. He's a gun carrier. He's a military veteran. He's a small business owner, owns a gun shop in Austin, and was involved in, like, his gun store was robbed. And then that shooting that took place in Austin over the weekend, they apparently either used the gun from his shop or they stole from his shop as it kicked off sort of the crazy story. So Mike's going to come and do an interview with me either today or tomorrow. So we'll get that done and we'll share it with you. And I think it'll be interesting to talk about someone who, I want to know if he thinks we can vote our way out of it, because he's pretty sane and logical, and he's run for office. He's one of those people that you guys should be following. His name will forever be in the gun history, because what he did was push forward an opportunity for you guys to have closer to that constitutional liberty, which we should have never had taken. The kind of people that would vote against, a National Firearms Act and be down with getting rid of it are people like Tom Massie. But they're part of We the People, and that We the People group, it's incredibly small. It continues to be incredibly small. Here's what's more likely. What's more likely is you will find out that Lindsey Graham is going to have zero problem running for office. He's going to have no problem getting in. And I went and looked at it because I was real curious. And so here you have it. This is a story from Newsweek, and this is from this week, or maybe Sunday. It was updated on the 18th, which was 2 days ago. Lindsey Graham's chance of winning South Carolina Senate race. They have a new poll out. So I would say that Lindsey Graham is probably on the exact opposite as Tom Massie. He's already told you. I've played clips here for the last couple months. He's on Team Israel. It's pronounced Israel. I don't know how you spell it, but there's like a Z in there and a U and an R and an I and an L, and it's unclear what other vowels are in there. Israel. And here it says, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is on track to avoid a runoff in South Carolina for this year's midterms, with new polling showing that he's comfortably above 50% in the threshold, and he is far ahead of the divided field. Their primary is on June the 9th. So on May the 19th, you got to watch a 360% increase in the opposition to Tom Massie turn out in a tiny district for a House seat. And we're going to see on June 9th that Lindsey Graham, a.k.a. great MAGA ally and Donald Trump knobslobber, is going to find himself right at the top of the ticket, and he's going to have no problem. He's going to cruise on to victory. I love it. He's an ally of President Donald Trump. Graham has served for 8 years in the House, beginning in 1995, and is now in his 4th term in the Senate. Terms are 6 years. So yeah, he's been in office for about 31 years. Mm-hmm. If you are a scumbag who loves Israel, you get 30 years, House and Senate. If you are an American guy who has genius level IQ, you're an inventor, you own businesses that made you a bunch of money, you have a palace that you built with your own 2 freaking hands, and your own ranch, and you like to have things like your own beef and raw dairy, then you get voted out with Israel money. Key points to know, says Newsweek. Graham's already above the 50% threshold that puts him on track to avoid a runoff. His nearest challenger is more than 40 points below him, underscoring how fragmented the field is that will remain. He has multiple challengers, and they all have almost no support whatsoever. Recent polling suggests that consolidation is accelerating, and Graham is seeing support rise. Yeah. Prediction markets give Republicans roughly 85% chance of holding the seat in November. President Trump's endorsement is still a decisive factor, apparently. The funny thing is that Donald Trump's endorsement only goes if you believe that it's worth even voting at all. Donald Trump just endorsed Ken Paxton in the runoff that we're going to have here in Texas, which is going to be on the 26th, for those of you that are interested. We're going to have a election for a couple of things. We're going to basically do a runoff on a couple of different seats, including our Senate seat. Republican representative, or the Republican nominee for the Senate run. And Donald Trump has just weighed in, and he says it should be the challenger, Ken Paxton, not the incumbent, John Cornyn. And I've decided that I don't care. Now, you guys can do whatever you want, and I'm not advocating anyone do something else. And you guys are not going to convince me with your comments, and you're not going to convince me with your points in the chat, because a lot of people have said, oh, you must reconsider because this is so much better. I don't believe that these are real. That's what I just said. So when you try to make the comment, oh, you must do this because just imagine if we got more Cornyn. I don't care. It sounds like the fix is in one way or another. It'll go the way it's supposed to go without me. It's not going to matter. That's my belief. And the reason I believe that is because I'm now sitting closer into the camp of people like Ari Shafir, which I started with. I just showed you that 100% more people turned out for an election where nobody would normally show up, and people don't care. And potentially it's because there was $20 million worth of Israeli lobby money, and potentially it was because it's not real at all. It was all fake. And there's not going to be someone who goes like, well, it's not like we do paper ballots where people can actually verify who's there. It's not like Donald Trump's number 19 priority, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship, happened. That didn't happen in our 20 core promises that we're going to make America great again. So I'm going to stay in the same position that the people who elected 2024 Donald Trump stayed in when they elected 2024 Donald Trump, which was the Agenda 47 position. And that position was, our elections are fake and gay until you actually secure the elections and show that they're not fake and gay. That's it. And I know that's not going to happen. That's the best part. It's the best and the worst part. There's something really awful about knowing that you're right, and then at the same time knowing that that means that you lose. What did I say last week? I'm not smiling when I say this. I'm wincing. I'm wincing because the outcome, even if I correctly predict it, sucks. It's not good. It's not good for any of us. I think that Rich Barish puts it probably pretty properly. So I will play you sort of you can win the battle and lose the war. I think that's exactly what went on yesterday. A battle was won and the war potentially was lost for people who don't agree with me. So they may have already just shown their hand too aggressively.
I am in Iowa. I plan on voting Republican locally, nationally.
He's reading a quote from one of his listeners.
Dude, I mean, dude, Massie, let me just say this for the Republican donor who just texted me.
Okay, so just so we're clear, this is Rich. He's on his podcast. He looks like he's got Robert Barnes on with him as well. They were doing this live stream, and they are reading from somebody who says, I live in Iowa. I plan on voting Republican in the local elections, Democrat nationally. That kind of gives you the sense. This is the same thing that I often used to do, where I would vote Republican nationally, and then I would vote for Libertarian candidates locally, because I think that they're better. So here you have a guy saying he's going to vote for Democrats. I don't know what, that's an option. I think the other option is you just don't vote at all. People will do that too. But here's what his addressing this individual who's going to do local versus national as a punishment to the National Republican Party.
Okay. It was close. It's not that much of a blowout. You had to spend $25 million to knock him out, and it's a primary. We're concerned about a general election, okay? A general election. Israel and foreign policy does not win national elections. You're going to get fucking creamed. You're not listening because you think you bought a Senate seat. You bought a district seat and you fucking won here. You burned the party with your little tantrum, with your $30 million tantrum. You're burning the party to the fucking ground. And if you're unhappy about tonight's show, wait until you see tomorrow's. That's it. You're not getting it through your thick head. This isn't a win. You fucking hurt everyone here. You hurt everybody for your selfish fucking reasons. Now you're not going to learn until you lose the popular vote next November by a fucking 10 points or more. That's when you're going to learn. And what are you going to tell everybody then? Look at what you did to Trump's approval rating. Look at what you did to it. You think somehow that Ed Gallrein beating Thomas Massie has made up for what you have done to this presidency? You're fucking retarded if you think that. You're done. You think everyone's lying? You think the New York Times is lying? This ain't 2020, bro. They're right. And actually, Robert, the New York Times has a very good track record of the House vote in midterm elections. The New York Times Siena poll is very good at the House vote in midterms. Go look it up. They are not missing by somehow some miraculous margin, and Republicans are going to pull this off because Thomas Massie lost a primary. You're in an ethno-religious supremacy delusion. That's your problem.
An ethno-religious supremacy delusion. That might be the most quotable thing I've heard. Yes, so he's swearing a lot in there. I think he's emotional in a way because I think people got emotional last night. And I'm trying not to do that as a general rule. That's kind of not what I like to do. I think that's kind of more what Rich does, but he doesn't swear nearly that much. Not usually. All that being said, I'm watching our chat. On one side of the screen, I've got the Rumble chat. And there are people who are irritated with this, and there are people on the YouTube saying that this guy's spitting the truth. So again, that shows you, even in an audience that generally speaking agrees on a lot of the same things, I think we often do, you're hearing things where people who would otherwise generally disagree with you are going to find some disagreement. I think what we can all agree on is what's actually problematic with this current administration. And he pointed out something that's very critical. Just because you saw one thing happen, which shows that Donald Trump's ability to move the Donald Trump base is still Donald Trumpish, that doesn't mean that Americans like Donald Trump writ large. His approval rating is under 40%. It could be as low as in the mid-30s, which means 2 out of 3 people don't like what Donald Trump's about. So how are you going to see that play out in a national election when everybody gets a say and not just people who are GOP voters? That's going to be your problem. And the stuff that is going on that continues to be more and more obvious to people who are, generally speaking, right-leaning or are Republican-aligned, the gettable voter types, like the Kyle Seraphin independents, the bacon cheeseburger nationalist types. This stuff makes me sick for all of it. This is Dropside News reporting on the Financial Times. I'll bring their story up in 1 second here. FT reporting Donald Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm, 1789 Capital, has grown from a roughly $200 million asset stake to $3.5 billion as they pitch a quote-unquote America First investment strategy centered on so-called patriotic capitalism. It's Palm Beach Beach. Nothing says America like Palm Beach. Palm Beach is not very American, just whatever it's worth. Like, for those of you that live in America, you know, Palm Beach is not you. It aims to reach $10 billion in assets, and they've invested heavily in AI, defense, and tech companies. You know, like those just cornerstone American industries of AI, defense, and tech companies. Ugh. Fine. One partner told the Financial Times that the firm hoped to become the new Carlyle Group, using deep political connection in Trump's Washington to build influence and attract capital. What does that mean? What's the Carlyle Group? Oh, that was a group that had like former presidents in it. Here's the actual piece from the Financial Times. I will put this over in the comments on Rumble and on YouTube for you guys to read. Donald Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm flouts its political edge in the investment push. Nothing like having a connection. Isn't this the same exact crap that people were disgusted by when we were talking about the Biden administration? That they had access to things, that there was like that Rose something or other group that had money coming in with Hunter Biden. Donald Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm is building an investment empire around patriotic capitalism in the latest effort by an entity tied to the president's family to capitalize on his America First agenda. 1789 Capital counts Donald Trump Jr. as a partner, told the Financial Times that its assets under management jumped from $200 million to $3.5 billion in a year. From point due to $3.5 billion in a year. Very good. Just so we're all on the same page, you don't have to be a math major to realize the amount of growth there. They're on a deal-making spree with many of the leading privately held AI companies. One of the capital partners says that the goal was to reach $10 billion in the next few years. That seems highly achievable if you can go from no billion to $3.5 billion in 1 year. That checks out. He pitched the firm as the new Carlyle Group, a Washington-based investment firm known for its contacts in Washington, also known as dirty, disgusting inside capital elitism. Beltway insiders. It was once nicknamed the Ex-President's Club after previously counting George H.W. Bush, John Major as advisors. Understanding the political landscape is important when you're allocating capital. Kind of tells you right up front that the game is dirty and it's being played by people who have insider knowledge, doesn't it? Understanding the political landscape is important when you're allocating capital. If you're sitting in Silicon Valley, you may not be a core competency, but the founders want and need to understand geopolitics and macro factors that impact their businesses. You know what also helps? If your dad is making decisions on things that you're investing in. Or maybe he's just making decisions on things that he's investing in. Again, here's Rachel Maddow, who I have to agree with. We played it yesterday. It still makes me want to freaking puke. You're making me agree with Rachel Maddow. You're making me agree with Caitlin Collins. You're making me agree with Tim Miller more often than not because they sound more reasonable than people who tell me that we should make sure that we have allocated capital with a political competency and an understanding of geopolitics and macro factors, aka my dad is the president.
Now, with each passing hour, we're getting more and more reporting coming out about how his stock buying as president tracks with things he's doing as president to boost the value of those stocks. I mean, it's just incredible. So in January, Trump buys hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock in NVIDIA. Then a week later, his Commerce Department approves the sale of NVIDIA chips to China. Also in January, Trump buys between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of stock in AMD, which is another chip maker. 1 week after he buys it, his Commerce Department approves AMD doing business in China as well. Following month, in February, Trump buys millions of dollars worth of stock in Dell. Dell Computers, right? Dell Technologies. 9 days after he buys millions of dollars worth of stock in Dell, Trump veers off script in a speech in Georgia to tell the crowd literally, quote, go out and buy a Dell computer. Then in March, he buys up a whole bunch of stock in a company called Thermo Fisher. Repeated purchases of Thermo Fisher. Judd Legum at Popular Information reports that Trump repeatedly buys up Thermo Fisher stock. And then he goes and visits Thermo Fisher on a presidential visit. And on this presidential visit to Thermo Fisher, he praises the company repeatedly as an incredible company. He says, as president, that he wants other pharmaceutical companies to start working with Thermo Fisher. He buys their stock and then he goes out and boosts the company as president. Judd Legum also notes that that same day, March 11th, same day as the Thermo Fisher visit, that same day, Trump bought hundreds of thousands of dollars of stock in Apple. And then that same day he bought the stock, he did another event where he singled out Apple and Apple CEO Tim Cook for praise. Apple, a great company. Then after that, Trump buys between $50,000 and $100,000 of Micron stock. Okay? Between $50,000 and $100,000 in Micron stock. The very next day, he calls into the Fox News channel and tells them, Micron, it's one of the hottest companies. Then it's Palantir, CNBC reporting. Trump makes 7 separate purchases of Palantir stock, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Palantir stock. Then he gets on Truth Social and praises Palantir, Palantir Technologies, great capabilities and equipment. He literally even posted the stock ticker abbreviation for Palantir.
That's as much as I can handle. Gosh darn it. That makes far too much sense for me to be comfortable with. If you're a scumbag doing scumbaggery and it's obvious and you don't seem to care about it, then what are we going to do? You think you can vote your way out of that? Let me go back to this real quickly because this is also quite interesting to me. Donald Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm, this is the Financial Times. This is a story that is covering the Financial Times story and amplifying the signal, and it's done by Dropsite News, which is run by Ryan Grimm. Ryan Grimm was individually called out as a bad actor by the people at AIPAC for doing what? Reporting on Epstein and for doing this, for talking these stories? You've made me agree with people who I otherwise may not agree with because the things they're saying are sensible, because the things they're saying are accurate, and the things they're saying are truly problematic to somebody of principle. Does that mean that I think that Rachel Maddow and I share principle? I do not. I actually don't. It turns out, though, I don't need to find someone to align with. I don't need to say like, well, does this person work at Fox? Well, I obviously believe what Fox says. No, what I do is I look at them and say, this is slop. So if you have slop and you are slinging slop, then perhaps I will recognize you as being a slop slinger. And if you're saying things that are true at different times, then I will individually assess whether or not you're saying something true. Here's another female voice. I don't see very much difference between her and Madonna, which means that she's probably very similar to Rachel Maddow in a lot of ways too. Here's Laura Ingraham, towing the party line. You know, the thing that we heard Megyn Kelly say that if she was at Fox, she would know what she's supposed to say. This is what you're supposed to say when you work at Fox.
Look, I think we heard from Massie it was a lot about Israel, and this is Israel's race. It's not America. Well, the voters of Kentucky did not agree with that. I mean, it's their district. It's the fourth district. It's their vote. It's their view. They did not buy what Tom Massie was saying.
If you assume that votes are real, if you assume that there was a 100% more turnout than previous, sure. I'm sure she would not believe that Donald Trump had the election stolen in 2020, right? She wouldn't say that. Oh, yeah, there was a lawsuit about that, too.
It looks like with these results on the Israel, component of this, even on the war, even if they want this war wrapped up, they are giving the benefit of the doubt to Donald Trump over Thomas Massie, the Epstein file, all of that. Trump wins. Bill Hemmer is going to, hold on one second, hold that thought. Bill Hemmer is going to join us.
Okay, hold on, because I'm not ready to hear what you have to say. Folks, I want to say thanks to our advertisers. You guys can find them at the second and third links that are available in our show notes, and those are all the folks that help contribute to keep us on the air, so I appreciate them doing what they do. You may hear an ad from Spotify as well at this moment, so there's our 2 reads. Like us on Rumble, same thing on YouTube. I want to pivot over to imagine, like, what if you had like a really tremendous pair of eyebrows and you didn't mind slinging things that were completely false? If you didn't mind telling people that they were dummies for not getting a COVID shot, if you didn't mind first hating on Donald Trump and then saying Donald Trump is a genius because he loves Israel. Yeah, let's see what that guy has to say. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not a surprise that Massie's friends are all of the most conspiratorial anti-Israel people on planet Earth. That would include Cenk Uygur, right, who put out a tweet. If Representative Thomas Massie loses tomorrow, the Republicans will become Israel's party. It's about
fact check, maybe.
Israel. By the way, it's not about Israel. I'll explain in a moment.
I'm really looking forward to the explanation.
Republicans will give them as much of our money as possible and go to war for them whenever they ask. Israel will 100% control the GOP because every member will be scared to death of opposing them. Now, again, the reason why Massie is in hot water here has nothing to do with his stance with regard to Israel. It has everything to do with his stance with regard to conspiratorial nonsense about Jeffrey Epstein and the fact that he has voted against a wide variety of President Trump's priorities in Congress.
The vaccine is safe and effective. You're a dummy if you don't get it. Everyone knows that. And also, if you think that the pedophiles are a problem, that's just a conspiracy theory.
He's sort of a Ron Paul figure who votes against large priorities of the Republican Party, which has ticked off President Trump pretty extraordinarily.
Interestingly enough, for Ben Shapiro, who used to claim that he was a conservative position being the group of people that think that government should be smaller, he apparently seems to absolutely love Donald Trump, who spends all the money in the world as long as that money also supports this group Israel, which is interesting because he totally is wearing his politics on his head.
Massie is trying this dumb routine. Massie himself is out there saying that Israel is trying to buy his seat in Congress. Again, my dude. Like this.
Did you just say my dude? That must be Yiddish.
This tactic is one of the dumbest tactics. I just have to say, it's such an it's a tactic made for stupid people. Okay, the reality is that people.
Whenever someone tells you what the reality is, they're about to tell you what their opinion is, and then they want you to conflate that with reality. Let's go.
People who are pro-Israel do not like Thomas Massie because Thomas Massie has engaged in every conspiracy theory it is possible to engage in and has made common cause with the most anti-Israel people. That's true.
Okay. I mean, but also, was he right?
But the reason that Thomas Massie is actually in trouble is because the Trump administration has decided to oppose him on the basis of completely other issues.
And that's why he had $20 million of Israeli money invested against him. Totally different issues, just the issues that were really important to Jewish Israeli billionaires. I'm tracking.
And so the usual game that is now played right now on the right, in the very podcastistan right, the game that is played is there will be a critique that has nothing to do with Israel. And the first thing you do is you claim that it's about Israel in an attempt to gin up the crazier part of the Republican base.
Really? Who makes it about Israel? Hold on. I have this clip and I think that it's really good. We're going to go to Ed O'Keefe yesterday and we're going to play it again because you tell me who from Podcastistan, which I'm pretty sure that CBS News is not Podcastistan. I'm pretty sure CBS News is a mainstream Jewish leaning outfit run by Jewish people. Just factually. And the guy's name is Ed O'Keefe. I don't know that Ed O'Keefe is Jewish. Ed O'Keefe sounds like he would be like Irish generally leans towards either, probably Catholic. So I don't know. Anyway, I looked into Ed O'Keefe's background. I didn't see anything mention religion at all. He apparently grew up in a place where they don't do religion, which is where my wife grew up. Here is a real quick question. Remember, I'm going to say a bunch of countries that I'm not going to support, and you're going to tell me which one is most important to you. Ready, go.
There have been more than $32 million spent on a primary in this congressional district, which is now the most expensive House primary ever in the United States. Is it worth it?
You'd have to ask Miriam Adelson on May 20th if it was worth it. Because, they tried to buy my vote for 14 years and it was never for sale. Now they're trying to buy a seat here in Kentucky. I think they underestimated the reserve price of my constituents. They waded into this. They thought they could buy this seat with a couple million. That didn't work. And now they're throwing good money after bad. The thing that surprised me is how much money we've been able to raise. I don't have 3 billionaires who want to just throw their money away. I've got the grassroots, tens of thousands of donations. Average donation for me is about $80. And we've been able to go toe to toe. A lot of that 32 million is coming from our side, but it's coming from regular working Americans.
When you say that they spent money to try to buy the seat, who are you talking about specifically?
Who are these they? I'm talking about the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, Republican Jewish Coalition, Miriam Adelson, Paul Singer, and John Paulson. These are the groups that have given 95% of the money to my opponent because they're mad at me over foreign policy. Now, what's interesting is my policy has always been No country is special, and no country deserves my constituents' taxpayer dollars. So I have never voted for foreign aid to Egypt, to Syria, to Israel, or to Ukraine. But the ones in Israel, since they're the biggest recipients of it, that makes them a little bit mad.
What's so wrong about helping defend Israel from Iranian threats?
I'm going to tell you all the places that I don't want to give money: Ukraine, Syria, Egypt, Israel, etc. And then you tell me which one matters the most to you, and then you ask me about Israel. That was Thomas Massie engaging in all the worst tropes. And there's an audience that listened to Ben Shapiro that turn around and go like, well, Ben Shapiro always tells me the truth. He told me what was good for me when it came to the COVID vaccine because his wife is a doctor. She knows what's up. And she told him what's up. And then he told me what's up. So now I know what's up because of Ben Shapiro's wife, who I've never heard from or met. But Ben Shapiro also told me that there were tropes being engaged in. I don't have to go look them up. He told me what the reality of it is, what the truth of the matter is. His words, not mine. Jim Jordan style. So there you go. What do people actually care about when they go and they vote, by the way? They're going to actually care about not some bullshit primary story about whether or not some guy was married and then his wife died, and they're not going to be like, they're not going to worry about these things. This is not what's going to come up. What's going to come up is people are going to go, I voted for Donald Trump because I wanted a cheaper economy with less illegal aliens buying houses so my kids can go out and buy houses and so I can afford to live. I voted for no new wars and no price hikes on things like gas. I voted for affordability. I voted for illegal aliens being kicked out of this country. I voted for America being great. Again, not 15 years ago when the Israeli lobby was the top of the food chain. I voted for when America was really great, when people were like walking around and they were generally enthusiastic. I watched a 1982 Soul Train video the other day, which made my wife and I crack up. One, people were skinny, kind of like the Maha agenda was talking about. They've really effed with our food supply. So we've got more fat people than ever before. And it may not even be their fault anymore because the food is just not good. You know, things like Tom Massie was saying, like, oh, you should be able to buy food that's near you and it's not garbage. And maybe we shouldn't have like immunity for glyphosate companies that are out there creating garbage and poisons in our food supply. The Maha thing, the thing that got a bunch of like suburban moms off the couch because they loved Robert Kennedy Jr., who's a Democrat, to come in. Did we do any of that stuff? Nah, we don't do that. So what's something we can all recognize every single week at some point in time? If you're moving around in the world, you're filling up with gas. Is the gas better? Is it good? Are you squared away? Story from Axios, story number 1. Iran war, it hits small businesses hard. What is the thing that it's hitting them on? It's squeezing labor and energy costs. The cost of labor and the cost of energy are being spiked. And so businesses with fewer than 250 workers, they create half of all jobs over the last half decade, and they're the ones that are most aggressively being squeezed. Is everything squared away? We've got a really smart Secretary of Energy. No question in my mind. Chris Wright is brilliant. He's got to do knob slobbery because he wants to stay in the Trump administration, because it's probably a fatal thing for your energy business if you get on the wrong side of this guy, and this guy is making terrible decisions for your job. What a rough spot to be in for Chris Wright. I actually do feel like this is a tough spot to be.
Thanks for having me, Martha.
So where do you expect the prices to go over the summer? What's your assessment, given supply and demand over the summer? Are they going to go higher?
Hey, I don't make projections, particularly about the future, Martha.
Ouch.
But I will say that under President Trump's leadership, we're at record U.S. oil production today, record refining capacity. We changed the blending requirements this summer to allow us to produce even more gasoline than we would normally produce for the peak summer driving season. And with 30 other nations around the world, we've released extra crude in the market during this disruption. Because yes, there is a disruption. Prices are higher than they would otherwise be, but I think President Trump summarized it well. This is a price we're all having to pay, but the cost of inaction is vastly, vastly larger than this price.
And who are we paying this price for? The Secretary of State, the Speaker of the House, the President of the United States have all told you that we are paying this price because we had to go to war with Iran because Israel was going to strike Iran, and then Iran was going to strike us. I didn't make that up. They said it. Joe Kent said it. Joe Kent left the administration over it. He's still saying it. So when the war started, gas was on average $2.98 a gallon. It's now up 80% at $4.53 a gallon across this country. There are places where it's obviously a lot more. Are people going to remember that? Or are they going to remember that Tom Massie is a bad guy because he wanted to get rid of the Department of Education and he was in the way and he was saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing things that are against American freedoms. Okay. You got one vote. You're going to lose the entire thing. You're going to win that little battle. You might not even win that seat in the end, and then you're going to lose the war. Why does it matter? Here's what they said. The big picture, entrepreneurs are dealing with persistent concerns around labor availability, inflation, and uncertainty in the economic outlook, according to the Bank of America Institute. Oh, you mean that whole, let's get rid of inflation and make America affordable again is not working? Turns out, zooming in on small business, their profitability in April suffered their biggest decline in 2 full years, falling 1.3%, according to the report. This came as gas prices spiked due to the Iran war. We're having short-term pain for long-term gain. We just don't know how long that short-term is. That short-term is likely to continue to last based on what the energy secretary said. He doesn't know when it's going to end, and he's not going to make any predictions. Probably smart, probably because this is going to keep going. We shut down the Strait of Hormuz. There's a global shipping crisis. For energy, it's also going to affect other things too, to include fertilizer, to include foods. I've got friends telling me that we might be looking at a global food supply shortage, maybe not locally, but it'll cause things to go way more expensive here, and they may cause unrest in other places. That could be really problematic. The price of gas was $4.53 on Tuesday, yesterday. It's 43% up from a year ago. I don't know how they do these numbers. It's $1.52, $1.55 more expensive against $3. Whatever. The threat, small businesses, 31% more on gasoline in April than they did a year earlier. It turns out if you add 31% to a transportation cost that's in your supply line, it's going to cause prices to go up. That's not making America affordable again, and people are going to remember that. At least we have strategic oil reserves that they built up, right? Remember, they were touting how they fixed the problems of the Biden administration regarding the oil reserves. So I saw that, and then I thought, oh, good, we're not releasing those, are we? We are, but we're doing it in a better way, so don't worry about it because we're trading it. No matter how you spin this, no matter how much lipstick you try to put on the pig, having smart people run policy when a dumb person is controlling the wheel, it doesn't work. And it's not gonna be something that regular people go, oh, well, that's fine. Because I'm totally comfortable with paying a bunch more every single day. It'd be fine if you said, look, we're gonna have a price hike and we're gonna have to eat some smaller portions. We're gonna have to adjust and tighten our belts because we've got some important things. And everyone says, okay, I'm voting for that. You voted based on dropping energy prices down below $2 a gallon for gasoline explicitly. And we played it last week. And then you said, I don't care what Americans think. And it has no factor in what I'm doing. The whole Israel conversation comes in when you tell people that you went to war over a priority for not America. And then you tell people that that is a bigger priority than what their pocketbooks feel. And you want to go win a midterm. It's not going to happen.
So you changed the blend a little bit. You increased production in coordination with other countries in order to try to keep prices down. Is tapping into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve an option, or is that off the table to try to give people a little bit of relief while this plays out?
No, absolutely. We did tap into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and we are releasing oil today. That's what I was saying. With 30 other nations, we are releasing reserves from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve and from 30 other nations around the world. But unlike the Biden administration that did it for political purposes, they sold the oil and permanently reduced the oil stored in the SPR. We're trading barrels. We're trading barrels.
We also remember that President Trump wanted to replenish it when gas prices were very low. But I guess what I'm asking is, so there are different levers that can be pulled.
What I'm trying to do is there a way that we can spin this so that it looks great? I mean, remember that Donald Trump bought low and then we're selling them high. So, that's what you do. You buy low and then you sell it high. And so America is really winning, right? When gas is up to $4.53 a gallon national average. Is that how we do winning? How do you frame this as winning? Because I work at Fox. My job is to frame winning. I don't know if you noticed, but I have blonde hair, and that is a minimum criteria for being on. I'm basically just trying to say here is, how do I define winning here? What levers can we pull? Are there any levers? What levers is that woman pulling? Cool. Anyway, that's my sober and not all that excited view of what's going on out there. I actually am somewhat optimistic for the Massie family not being in Congress, although he's got 7 more months to go. And it would be nice. It'd be nice to not be around that scumbaggery. I'm kind of like happy for Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I don't even like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't know her, but I just don't like the public persona she has. She's kind of off-putting. And yet I'm like, good for you. You got out. Most people end up dying in that sort of crazy, cultish, non-real world. They get lured into this experience and then they don't know how to leave. So I think it's good when people do get out of it. I think it'd be better if they just voluntarily left. It's a bummer to go out on an election. It's an interesting thing to go out on an election that proves so many things that people have been saying, and then they think they won by exposing their hand so aggressively. They were like, we're going to win so hard that you're going to see us winning. 357% increase in voter turnout for the opposition. There's kind of a there's a long history of people winning by losing. It's a Christian principle, it turns out, too. But the idea that you would expose evil by not winning, by letting evil win, but it shows its hand that it's actually working. Maybe that's what's going on here. I don't know. I don't know what God's plan is. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I will tell you that I do see more people kind of seeing through what the game really looks like and getting less excited about participating. This may not make perfect sense with you, but I want you to listen to this guy. He's talking about a plan that he had to solve a problem in his own town. And the plan was that he was going to launch a slaughterhouse and a living quarters and small business, like kind of the economic engine that would revitalize a town because they had a stagnant and dead husk of a Pepsi plant. And so he saw an opportunity. This is the thing that we're told capitalism is about. Something overextends. They're no longer able to continue on. The means of production are no longer valuable, or they lose, they make a bad calculation, and suddenly now it's just wasting away. The asset is devalued to the point where somebody with maybe the energy and the instinct to turn it around will do it. We see this all the time. There'll be like a steam plant in Portland, and then they turn it into like a cool restaurant area because it's an industrial base that looks cool, but they no longer have that industrial need. So someone's like, oh, this could be shops and restaurants and artistic lobbies and lofted space for people to do whatever, I don't know, crafty stuff. And so they go, oh yeah, let's turn it. This guy saw an opportunity. And what you run into, which so many small towns have these opportunities. I see them all the time. I drive by. I'm like, that warehouse would be such a cool opportunity for fill in the blank. And then you find out that the people that are actually the ones who probably turn out for these primary elections, the ones who are really jamming up the works, it's not just national jamming it up. It's people who don't want to see change. They want to live in what they live in, and they don't want to see the America that America used to be in, which was revitalized and forward-moving and aggressive and taking risks. Listen to this guy explain this and tell me you don't have sympathy for people who are going to opt out and just decide, yeah, I don't think we vote our way out of this.
So I just saw a video.
That is not it. And that's Marjorie Taylor Greene coming in very hot on the audio. All right, here, let me try it one more time.
The Office of Special Counsel, Pete, they're going to come.
This is how you know this is a podcast run by one guy. I thought I clicked through and I didn't grab it. So stand by. I'll get this on. Here we go. This is called Barn Talk. This is a podcast or some kind of discussion of barn talk by a guy who's frustrated with some boomers. Very specific boomers, not you boomers, unless you voted against his project.
What is it now?
People within the politics of rural America, they need to realize that a kid that gets hired to work in the tire shop the rest of the year and then drive a floater in the spring, that's not necessarily what we all mean by bringing another generation back in agriculture. You're not going to put down roots and raise a family being seasonal help. And we need to figure out how to get them involved.
Oh no, they know how. They just don't want to. Story time. In the middle of the town I live, there's a 40,000 square foot former Coca-Cola bottling plant that's been sitting vacant for the better part of 30 years. 5 years ago, it came on the market, and I had a plan and an investor all lined up. It was going to be beautiful. The centerpiece of the operation would be a small-scale poultry slaughterhouse, completely self-contained and invisible to anyone outside. The building would also contain affordable housing units, a butcher, a baker, and classroom space for training new farmers to operate the farms that would supply the slaughterhouse. The plan would create over 24 full-time year-round jobs, serve as a tourist attraction, and bring in millions of dollars of retail revenue, subject to local sales taxes. It would revitalize farmland, keep it in agricultural use, and protect it from developer pressure. But in order to do all this, we'd have to get a zoning variance from the town council and the town manager. A bunch of old people. You want to know what these mother said to me? They said that they really appreciated the small butcher and the small restaurant and the baker part of it, but the jobs and housing part was going to be a problem because it conflicted with the small town character called for in the town's master plan. And that's when I understood what I was dealing with. These elder boomers who run these sparsely populated towns and counties, they do not want thriving rural communities. They want a quiet little tomb to die in. They want to go to the DMV, there's no line. They go to the restaurant, they don't need a reservation, they don't wait to sit down. There's roads, but there's no traffic on them. There's no property crime. They don't have to fight for parking. There's no noise, there's no kids. And they want just enough money coming in to keep these few services on life support. Economic development would mean people live here full time and it would ruin their good time. So the next best thing is to convince rich people from the nearest city to buy second homes here. That way they don't live here full time, they pay property taxes, they increase their own property values, and everything stays the same. So naturally, young people flee this environment as fast as a used Nissan Altima can carry them, leaving old people to pretend that they don't know why it's happening. And until they're willing to compromise at least a little on their own personal comfort, rural communities will decline into the grave right along with them.
I think that story is probably a lot more common. Anybody who's ever come up with a great idea and told you that it got nixed by a city planner, or found out that some little town council of nobodies that have some minor amount of governmental power. This is why my ongoing supposition is that government is the worst answer to every question and every problem, including when it might be the only way to do it. There may not be another way that you can do city planning. You may need to do things through government. And it turns out it still sucks because you're going to get a small group of people, oftentimes that are either nepotistically connected or they're financially aligned with something that they ought not to have. And they all end up being kind of interested in their own personal things. And everybody starts thinking the reason that I'm here and the reason why I was put in this position is for me. And so that I can make sure that I have the best outcomes, so that I can make sure that I go from having $200 million invested to having $3.5 billion invested because of me, because I am so special. It's very rare that we see people that kind of have a selfless attitude. I'll tell you what looks selfless to me. And maybe Tom Massie is not this guy. But the guy has a beautiful house. It's freaking gorgeous on property that he doesn't have to see anyone else, where there's no cell phone service. He owns his own cows. He has all of his own capabilities. He's got a laboratory. He's a genius level intellect that can sit and invent things and do cool stuff all day long. And instead, he chooses to go and engage in this fight, probably because he thinks he needs to, when he could be rich, hanging out at home and not do any of that. And nobody would say crappy things about him, and nobody would care about who he's married to or not, and nobody would have any strong opinions on whether he's a bad person or whether he's awful or whether he's a moral reprobate or whatever other things. He wouldn't have Laura Loomer like trying to run after him. Imagine Laura Loomer running after you, trying to dig up your personal details. We've all got things in our past. Most people, generally speaking, if they make a ton of money, they don't go looking for more attention. They go and they say, I'm going to just stay in my own space. I've got everything I want. I need nothing. I won at America and I'm under the age of 60. He doesn't need to work. He could be working on his farm and grabbing peaches and drinking margaritas every afternoon. And that is an option. And instead, he's the kind of guy that wants to keep doing stuff, that shows up because he thinks that it needs to be done. He might be wrong, by the way. He might be better off not involved in any political life, but watching this crap. It's like, why would you put it all on the line? Oh, maybe you think there's a bigger good. Maybe there's a greater good that's beyond you. Maybe you're not in this political office. Maybe you're not on the town council. Maybe you're not the person who's in charge of this HOA for you. Maybe your option is to serve. But servant leadership is not a thing that we really appreciate. In fact, we crap on it as much as possible. And for some reason, this country tends to elevate the worst. And we all know it. We all know that every time you go like, hey, if I were to ask a random person on the street, what is your opinion of politicians writ large? No one specifically. Corrupt, scumbag, bad person, low morals. Like all of these things, liars. This would be the assumption. That's the default position in America. And yet people voluntarily get into there. Maybe it's because they want power or energy, or maybe because they're bored, maybe because they need that attention. I don't know. But I'm kind of glad when someone that I think has like the right ideas in those places is not there anymore. And at the same time, also, it just makes me think that our system is not voting our way out at all. I don't think we can. So I've got some palate cleansers for you because we went a little bit long today, but I'm just saying, I feel like a lot of people are going to be frustrated. Yesterday, we played you about some very important devices that are being invented for the Indian community in India. This is the train alert that says, bloody move, so you don't get hit by a train, and the how deep it is poll, which tells you whether or not the water is deep enough for you to jump headfirst into and not break your spine. That's a really important thing. The power line pusher, so if you're worshiping the demon god at a parade, you don't get zapped by lightning coming out of the crossing power lines as your demon god sort of like temple thing that is like being carried by a bunch of people. So that's all good. We want to make sure that you don't get hit with all those things if you're an Indian person. In America, we bury our power lines sometimes, and we have pools that you can see the bottom. They're clearly marked with how deep it is. So anyway, continuing on with our sort of India theme, I have a very short little video of a problem that you probably didn't realize is out there, but there are people who are not just transgender and confused about what to do with the things that hang between their legs or the lack thereof. But there are people who are actually transracial. And I didn't know that you could get racial affirming care, but you can. And so we've got a little taste on that. And then I want to do something that we can all agree on. Christopher Walken is crazy, funny, and we like our dogs. We like our pets in this country. So let's start off with some transracial stuff.
So I am Lisa. I was born in Melbourne. I started transitioning 6 or so months ago. I started race affirming care a few months after I started transitioning. Hello, let me ask you, do you have solar panels? No, do not hang up. I am not scamming you. I am Indian. End of story.
Guys, if you're just listening, you're missing out on some really important stuff. Number one, this is a white lady with blonde hair, blue eyes, and very light skin. And the first thing she did when she said she was transitioning to being Indian, she threw a bag of trash just on the ground. And now she's squatting, and she looks like she's about to poop behind a bush. What on earth? That's it. Gotcha. Oh, we're just going to leave it with a woman who's squatting and taking a crap behind a bush. I don't think in India you have to do that based on what I've heard. All right. Dogs. You guys love dogs. I like dogs. I miss having a dog. My kids reminded me that it was really nice when we had a dog. But what I never thought about with having a dog was whether or not I wanted to have a tail like a dog. That actually never occurred to me. And that's why we have great actors, great artists that sort of remind us, this is a long clip, but we need it today. The first time you meet Christopher Walken might be something you'll never forget, especially if you could do a good Christopher Walken impression. I watched this last night with my wife and I cracked up.
The first time I met Christopher Walken on the set of Suicide Kings, I go to say hi to him, and the first thing, as I'm walking up to him, the first thing he says to me is, you know, I can see you coming. Holy shit. I'm like, because I'm introducing myself. I'm not a Vietnamese sniper working a tree line. Like, it's how, no offense, it's how introductions work. And he goes, I had my Korean. He ain't white. If I'm wrong. Anyway. And he goes, I had my Rottweiler. I go up to him, I go, and before I say anything, he goes, you know, I can see you coming. And I just kind of freeze. And I had my Rottweiler with me. He goes, I can see your dog, too. And I go, her name is Shirley. And he says, who cares? And I thought he cared because he brought it up, you know? And he goes, I gotta know, what happened to your dog, Shirley, Rottweiler? What happened to your dog's tail? It's gone. Where did it go? It's okay, you can tell me. And I'm just standing there like in this driveway going, where the fuck is my dog's tail? And then he gets like real close to me and he goes, it would be great to have a tail. And I'm cool, right? So I look back at him and I go, why? Why is that? And he goes, come on, if you had a tail, everyone would know. If you were angry or upset, they'd see you. They'd see you coming up the block. they'd say, "Get back! Look at his tail. He's crazy." And I go, "Well, you probably mean happy. Like people know if you're happy. If you have a tail, you'd wag it because you're happy." And he goes, "Maybe you and your tail." Yeah, he just cut the ring off on me, right? And then he looked at me like it's my turn to talk.
I got nothing.
And I've never had a tail talk before. I look down at the dog, and the dog's like, "Nah, not me."
No, don't look at me, man.
Not me, N-word. And I go, "Would you rather be able to fly or have a tail?" That's what I got out. And he goes, "A tail, of course." I go, "You'd rather have a tail than be able to fly?" He goes, "You could always get on an airplane with your tail."
What? I'm going to watch a Christopher Walken movie. If you guys have never seen the movie Suicide Kings, you're missing out on one of the greats. It has no political ramification whatsoever, and I feel like we kind of need that today. We need more entertainment. Our Rumble chat was reminding me of one of the great lines where Christopher Walken, who's a mob boss in that movie, and he's tied up and he's missing a finger because they cut off his freaking finger, and he's got to go to the bathroom. And so the guys are trying to figure out how to do this. That's Jay Moore, who does pretty darn good Chris Walken impression. Anyway, and the guy's like, he was like, who's going to take him, whatever. And he's like, "Guys, this is my dick. I pick." So he gets to pick who takes him to the bathroom because he's slowly dismantling these guys psychologically. Even though he's tied to a freaking chair, he's tied to a chair and he's taken apart all of these dudes mentally. There are some people that are obviously smarter than others. Chris Walken's character in that one, kind of there. I kind of feel like we're a country of dumb people. And so like maybe that movie wouldn't even fly today because I don't even think people understand that the Chris Walken humor. Those people probably turned out in droves yesterday, and they probably had like an extra 50,000 random people showed up to vote in the Kentucky 4 primary, or maybe not. Anyway, thanks for watching the program. For those of you that are part of it, and for those that watched it live, thanks for being part of the audience. I get to see weird stuff that you guys think is interesting on the side. Some of you guys would choose to have a tail over flying because you think you could get on an airplane with your tail. You're weirdos. Drop a comment about that. God bless all of you guys. The world will go on, it turns out, and the election still won't matter, in my opinion. I don't think we're voting our way out of it. God bless you guys. See you on the other end of this thing. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.
Let's talk about AIPAC.
Today, AIPAC.
On Capitol Hill, AIPAC.
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 You may have heard our name, but how much do you really know about AIPAC? AIPAC is an American organization that works to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. This partnership advances America's interests and democratic values and helps keep Israel safe. Our 6 million members are U.S. citizens, Democrats, Republicans, and independents from every part of the country who urge our elected leaders to enact pro-Israel policies. This includes expanding America's defense partnership with Israel, supporting life-saving security assistance, confronting Iran and its terror proxies, and promoting peace and normalization. Being pro-Israel is good policy, and AIPAC members make sure it's good politics, too. We raise money to help elect pro-Israel candidates for Congress from both parties. And we take the political fight to our opponents, helping defeat anti-Israel candidates running for the House or Senate. AIPAC is leading the fight in Washington to secure the future of the U.S.-Israel relationship. The actions of pro-Israel Americans today will help determine the future of this bond and the fate of both countries.
And it goes the same way in the right wing. Let me ask you this. If I went live on my show on Monday, this coming Monday, and I said, fuck Islam. I said, these Muslims need to go home. Fuck them. They're barbarians. They're third worldists. They like to live in open sewage and bomb crap. You think any conservative would disavow me? Any of them? Any Republican? You think if I was known for saying that, do you think I would have any trouble getting into CPAC or the New York Young Republican Club Gala or the GOP? Of course not, because Laura Loomer has access to the White House and she says stuff like that. Ben Shapiro has access to Trump and he says stuff like that. Could you imagine? Not to be a boomer here, but could you imagine if the shoe were on the other foot? It has to be left unsaid. Could I turn around and say F Judaism and those Jews and send them back to Israel? Like, it's literally unthinkable to even say the words. But we all know it's tolerated with Muslims. We all know it's tolerated with blacks. We all know it's tolerated with Hispanics, Asians. And yes, for far too long, it was tolerated against whites and Christians. And that's just the part that got left out. But now that we have this culture of liberalization,